Sword and Scale contains adult themes and violence. It is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
The incident that really stuck was he came up to me and he said if I ever get the chance, I'd put a bullet in Bill's head.
Hello, and welcome to Sword and Scale, Season 3, Episode 62, a show that reveals that the worst monsters are real. This week, we have a story for you that's unlike anything you've ever heard before. To call this story strange would be a gargantuan understatement. We're joined by prosecutor Dennis Brooks and author of the book, Too Pretty to Live, The Catfishing Murders of East Tennessee. Dennis has seen just about everything over a 17-year career, but he's never seen a case like this one. Get ready for high strangeness and a story that will leave you scratching your head. I wanted to take a second to tell you guys about this new subscription box service called Hunt a Killer. Maybe you've heard about it. People are obsessed. Hunt a Killer sends a package to your home each month full of creepy correspondence from their... This is Dennis.
My name is Dennis Brooks. I'm an assistant district attorney in East Tennessee. I grew up here and have been doing this job for over 17 years.
This story takes place in the small town of Mountain City, Tennessee.
Yeah, Mountain City is the county seat of Johnson County, and that is at the very northeast tip of Tennessee. It borders both Virginia and North Carolina. It's a very rural county, very mountainous, and basically everybody knows everyone else. There's about 3 grocery stores in town. Everyone runs into everybody else, and there's not a lot of secrets.
Yeah. How long have you been a prosecutor?
Over 17 years I've prosecuted cases in criminal court.
Dennis is quick to point out that this is one of the strangest cases he's ever seen.
You know, in over 17 years I've tried various murder cases throughout our 4-county district. None have been even close to as strange as this one.
I can tell from the book that you seem to really love your job, especially when you come up with a unique and interesting way to put a very bad person behind bars.
Well, you get into this work, hopefully, because you're wanting to make a difference. You're wanting to do something somebody else wouldn't be capable of, and you put forth that effort. And in this case, I had a heck of a challenge in front of me. I didn't have any guidebook to go with in prosecuting the case. There was no case like this that I knew of in the country. I even did searches on Westlaw looking for something that was somewhat similar, and there wasn't anything, and we had to basically start from scratch on how to put a case together such as this.
The story you're about to hear is so hard to tell because the reason why this horrible crime happened is so difficult for a reasonable mind to understand. It's beyond words. It's something that makes no sense, but it happened nonetheless. Tuesday, January 31st, 2012. 128 Davis Lane, Mountain City. The home of 36-year-old Billy Payne, 23-year-old Billie Jean Hayworth, and their 7-month-old newborn baby boy.
Well, this is a house that is in a rural area, but it's still got some neighbors around it, and it's a very small house. There's maybe 3 bedrooms at the most. There's a back entranceway, which is a sliding door, and when investigators entered, there was Bill Payne's body was they're laying on top of the bed that he and Billie Jean Hayworth shared as a couple. He was clothed in only his shorts that we presume he was sleeping in that night, and he had a gunshot wound to his face below his left eye. And of course, he was deceased. He also had a large slice wound around his neck in the front. Billie Jean Hayworth's body was found in another bedroom where her baby's things were, and she was found with a single gunshot wound to the side of her head and an exit on the other side. And within her arms was her 7-month-old baby Tyler, who was still alive. She was clutching him as she passed away.
Who found the bodies?
A family friend came to check his mail. His mail would come to that residence, and he came that morning during the daylight hours, and Bill's truck was still out there. It was still there in the driveway, and he would have expected Bill to be at work, and he started checking around in the house and discovered the bodies.
A young family gunned down, execution style, in their own home. A baby covered in blood, his mother still clutching him. What possible motive could there be for something like this? When police started asking around to find out who Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth would consider enemies, not surprisingly, a name popped up. Tell me about Janelle Potter. This is a person who is a little unusual.
Yeah, in prosecuting the case and in presenting the book, we have to explain who she is so that you understand where she went. At the time of the crime, she was 30 years old. She had never left her parents' home. She had never held a job. She had gotten a high school diploma, but it was a special education diploma. She had some, perhaps learning disabilities. She had auditory issues, such as if I was to tell you, hey, I'm going to whip your tail, and in a joking fashion, she would take that literally. She couldn't get the tone of the inflection that's not serious.
Dennis is being polite. Eric Engum, a psychologist who examined Janelle, said that 99 out of 100 kids would perform better at math, reading, and spelling. She has an IQ of 72, which is 3 levels below the average person, and operates at a level of a 4th grader. According to the psychologist, she suffered a brain injury in high school when someone attacked her, which reportedly magnified her intellectual disabilities. The psychologist, however, was hired by her defense team.
And, she turns 18, she starts drawing disability, she stays at home. She, by all intents and purposes, she was not really allowed to have a typical boyfriend-girlfriend type relationship with anyone else. And in her socially backward way and sheltered existence, she started using the internet like a lot of people do. Started with MySpace accounts and then Facebook, and getting on online forums such as Topics and interacting with the world. Now, the problem is when she'd interact, eventually something would go awry.
I think the Potters lived in a bubble to some degree, their own little bubble that things from the outside, when things from the outside pierced that bubble, they found a way to, I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for. They found a way to redistribute the bubble, but at the same time, destroy whatever had pierced it.
And her parents didn't help at all by being so overprotective.
Yeah, and it's not just being overprotective, but as you see through the book, through the writings of the different characters, there's a lot of obsessions and paranoias evident in her family, and with the the negatives that Janelle probably entered the world with, those got exacerbated by how her parents were, particularly her mother Barbara.
Janelle Potter seemed to be a lonely person. I think she grew up very sheltered. She had some disabilities early on, and I believe her parents tried to compensate for that to some degree. She was described as not having a lot of friends. One witness even went as far as to say she was weird, odd, that kind of. So I think she had some social ineptness, had some problems relating to people.
Despite what was described as an auditory disorder, it seems that Janelle's mother, Barbara, had a lot to do with the way Janelle turned out.
Well, to hear her tell it, she's a good, fine Christian woman. And if you study her words and her writings, she's a very disturbed individual. A lot of obsessive compulsions, a lot of paranoias. If anyone in her life has disagreed with her or been at odds with her, she automatically believes that they want her dead. And she repeats that often, not just towards these victims, but for other people in her life. And those traits of Barbara sort of translate to Janelle. He picks those up.
Barbara Potter's psychosis is evident in the long and rambling emails she would write.
Yeah, and that's one thing I told the jury. I said that it would be almost humanly impossible to mimic a Barbara Potter email because you would die of exhaustion before you got done. She'll take 10 lines of text to say goodbye, and she'll put a lot of family details, personal details in an email. No one could possibly mimic her writing, I don't believe.
Barbara's nonsensical paranoia was directed not only towards friends and acquaintances, but also her immediate family. Dennis calls her the rotten apple that spoiled the bunch.
She is, and I think I come to that conclusion not from this crime, but from how she treated her older daughter, Christy, who was sort of the black sheep of the family because she didn't indulge in all the delusions that Barbara Potter engaged in. But we saw a lot of emails that Barbara had written to Chris back and forth about Christy, and those were probably as disturbing as anything we saw in the actual homicide case.
This is Janelle's older sister, Christy.
My sister and I were typical siblings. We fought like crazy. You have either you're really close or you fight all the time. We fought all the time. We beat each other up and, yelled and scratched and carried on. But other than that, it was pretty typical. And I moved out of the house in 1997, 98, somewhere around there. And from there on out, it was really rocky. My mother and I had a rocky relationship as I was growing up in my teens anyway. And when I just got out of the house, because I realized that it was very toxic. They babied my sister. She was supposed to have had learning disabilities. And she was never really taught how to do anything, and there was always an excuse for everything. She couldn't do it because she wasn't able to or didn't know how, or there was always some excuse. And my mother and I just had a very rocky relationship as I was growing up. We didn't agree on anything, and I was very, very independent, always have been, and she didn't like that.
Christy did, however, get along with her father.
For the most part, I don't really have any problems with my father. He and I actually had a very good relationship up until right after they moved, and every time he and I would talk, he would get in trouble for something he supposedly said or didn't say or whatever it might be. And I think it just got to the point where, we actually stopped talking. There was never any big argument. It just stopped, and I think it was he got tired of hearing it from my mother and my sister. there was some jealousy there or anger. I'm not really sure what it was.
Christy is lucky. She got out. Imagine a lifetime of living in this household with a delusional, paranoid mother constantly portraying herself as the victim of a conspiracy by everyone around her, and a father who just went along with everything she said. Imagine being a 30-year-old woman, still living at home, having never learned to drive a car, having never had a boyfriend, not being allowed to leave the house on your own, the internet being your only escape from this reality.
Janelle's online life was appeared to be far different from her real life. She made a lot of friends on Facebook. She would meet someone in town and send a friend request. Out of kindness, whatever, they would accept the friend request. But as time went on, she seemed to, the word harass is kind of strong, but she aggravated people. Private messaging, just trying to constantly interact with people, and people got tired of it, and they would unfriend her. I believe she even went to chat rooms and made friends that way. One of the witnesses was a girl who had met her online. They had shared a lot of things about themselves with each other, were friends, but had never met in real life. At the trial was the first time the girl had actually seen Janelle in person. So she did represent this persona of having this network of friends that really didn't exist.
Eventually, this cauldron of hate would bubble over. After the bodies are discovered, it doesn't take long for police to figure out who the main suspects are.
But like I say, in Johnson County, there's not a lot of secrets. Everybody knows everybody, so the police are able to narrow down the people who had a beef with the victims very quickly, and that was basically the Potter family and Jamie Curd.
This is J.D. Weinberger, who worked at the local grocery store, explaining how the Potters would come in and start saying things, negative things, about Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth.
The incident that really stuck was he came up to me and he said if I ever get the chance, I'd put a bullet in Bill's head.
It was no secret that the Potters didn't like this couple, so police went to their home and started asking questions.
So within 24 hours, they're out talking to those folks, and they were able to go to the Potter residence and do an hour-long interview in their living room with Buddy, Barbara, and Janelle. And what was striking about it, there wasn't anything that, they were able to arrest any of them on at that point. But what was striking about it was, these bodies were discovered 24 hours before. And while the Potters are saying, well, we weren't involved, we don't think anything like that should happen, we wouldn't wish that on anyone, particularly with a baby there. While they're saying that, the hour interview is full of venom towards the victims about all the things they had done wrong and how they had harassed them and endangered them. And Janelle even saying that they had threatened to rape her. It was a very strange interview.
But why so much hatred? Why so much anger at this young couple? To answer that, we'll have to understand the relationship between Jamie Curd and Janelle Potter. 38-year-old Jamie Curd was an oddball. Socially awkward, just like Janelle. Jamie Curd and Janelle had hit it off after being introduced by one of the victims, Billy Payne.
Bill Payne's sister, Tracy, had taken some interest in Janelle. She related that she felt sorry for Janelle because Janelle was shut in, never got out, and she tried to be a friend to her. And she did that, and in doing so, Janelle met Bill. And, Bill Payne was considered a friend of hers at that point. There was no conflict there at all. Bill eventually introduced Jamie to her, and Bill and Tracy thought they would make a good couple because you got Janelle, who's well into adulthood, doesn't really have a life to speak of, and you've got Jamie, who, while he works, he's never had a girlfriend. He's socially backward, so they sort of try to put them together.
A decision he wouldn't live long enough to regret. Kurd's relationship with Janelle had occurred in secret. Hidden phone calls and text messages was the extent of it. You see, the Potters didn't like Jamie Kurd and didn't approve of him dating Janelle. She was too good for him. That didn't stop the two from exchanging messages and selfies when Barbara wasn't looking. In fact, Jamie Kurd had purchased a phone for Janelle and given it to her in secret so that the two could communicate without Barbara monitoring their calls.
She also had developed some, if you want to call it a relationship, with Jamie Kurd. Jamie was sort of a social recluse. At the time of the killings, he was 38. From the words of everybody in the county, Jamie had never dated or had a girlfriend until Janelle Potter came along. Now, the problem for them in that relationship was her parents didn't approve of Jamie being around her, so they forbid that kind of relationship. So Jamie wound up buying a cell phone and throwing it out in the bush at the Potter residence with instructions for Janelle to retrieve the cell phone so that they could text when her parents were in bed or asleep. And they, began a very unusual relationship that was based basically on text and occasional phone calls on that phone.
But Jamie Kurd wasn't just some oddball that got wrapped up in the Potter madness. You see, Billy Payne, one of the victims, and Jamie Kurd, one of the ones who would be accused of his murder, were pretty close. In fact, they were related.
Jamie was a cousin of Bill Payne, and probably Bill Payne was about the best friend Jamie ever had. They'd hang out together on the weekend and drink and hang out with one another. As Bill then turns his attention to Billie Jean, then Jamie's sort of attached to Janelle, and he winds up sort of on that side. And there's conflict that starts to arise between Bill and Jamie, but I'm not really sure how much on Bill's end he had a conflict with his cousin.
This conflict had occurred after Billy Payne had learned about how the Potters treated Janelle. He had advised his cousin he should stay away from her. Jamie didn't like that. This was the first girlfriend he'd ever had, and even though their relationship was only electronic in nature, he wasn't about to let it go.
And then eventually, Bill Payne started a relationship with Billie Jean Hayworth. It became very serious quickly, and Billie Jean moved in with Bill and got pregnant with Tyler, and Bill, arguably became more responsible and more of a homebody at that point. So Jamie sort of wasn't an activity partner anymore, and plus at that point, Jamie had gotten more involved with Janelle Potter.
This is when the madness started. Whether it's a secret infatuation Janelle Potter had with Billy Payne, or jealousy at this young couple who had a loving relationship, a baby, and most importantly of all, a normal life, something Janelle would never have. Whatever the reason, this is when the bizarre, vitriolic online messages began, and they would end in murder.
Yes, once Billie Jean comes into Bill's life and they begin a serious relationship and she becomes pregnant, the proof indicated that that's when the Chris emails were created, that's where they started.
The Chris emails are what led to this tragedy, but we'll get more into that in a minute.
And through those emails and postings on topics, we saw a whole lot of venom going out toward Billie Jean and her friends.
Topics is a news and entertainment website with an open online forum that allows anonymous posting. However, just because you don't have to register doesn't mean you're really anonymous. Janelle used this website to spread her hatred of Billy Payne, Billie Jean Hayworth, and their baby using false online personas.
To the point where once baby Tyler is born, you would see these writings from Chris and the other online personas that Janelle would use, just a whole lot of negative energy towards that baby. We would see emails left and right where she would wish the baby would die along with them because the baby was from the devil. Very disturbing messages being brought out of the Potter house.
Did Janelle's parents monitor her activity online?
That's the really strange part about this case is you've got a 30-year-old woman catfishing her mother who lives in the same house using the same computer. They had their computer in a side bedroom that had a door to it. So, I presume when Janelle would use the computer, no one else would be in there. And then she'd leave, Barbara would go in and use the computer. So they're using the same computer, talking to each other, and Janelle using a false identity to do that.
Catfishing. That's what this case is all about. What is catfishing?
Well, how it's become known in popular media, what typically happens, you get online, you start making friendships with people in another part of the country that you never met. And, on the internet, you can reinvent yourself. If you're not happy with your life, you can make yourself pretty. You can make yourself interesting. You can make yourself successful. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times what you see when that happens, you'll see some romantic type relationship result.
Think of online dating. Was that profile picture of you really taken last week or 10 years ago? People's
fantasies get indulged. They fall for this fake identity that is created by another person. And, it usually leads to a disaster. In our case, catfishing was used to push forward an agenda, which was to get back at someone's enemies.
You mean people lie online, really?
Yeah, they lie all the time.
This whole thing started after Janelle fabricated a conflict between herself and the young couple. Using fake online accounts, she posted hate-filled messages accusing Billy Payne and Billie Jean Hayworth of being involved in selling drugs. From there, the conflict escalated, and soon Barbara and Buddy Potter became involved in the online dispute. This clip comes from the 2020 documentary about Janelle Potter called #Unfriended.
What kinds of things were people saying about you?
Just that I was a bad person, I was horrible, threatened to get raped.
Must have been pretty scary.
Yes.
I remember I wrote, "Please do not write on Janelle's Facebook." I begged them, please don't do this.
That, of course, was Barbara Potter. But the harassment didn't end online. Linda Stevens, the wife of the man who first found the victims, said she saw Janelle and Barbara Potter yelling at Hayworth as she pumped gas one morning. Stevens said she tried to calm Hayworth after the Potters drove away. Billie Jean Hayworth had had enough. "This won't stop," Hayworth cried before the murder. "They follow me everywhere. And now that I'm a mother, they say I'm unfit. They call me trash. They're constantly threatening me." Janelle's bizarre online behavior wasn't limited to hatred towards the young couple. Another woman by the name of Tara Osborne was also unfriended by Janelle. Afterwards, Osborne said she had to file a harassment complaint with the sheriff's office. But Janelle and the Potters vehemently denied they ever harassed anyone. Janelle said the only thing she ever posted on the internet was for the alleged harassers to leave her alone. This pattern of attacking someone and then claiming to be the victim yourself is something she picked up from Barbara. 4 months after the murders, the Potter women filed harassment claims against the victim's family. They also gave typed statements. These statements would become extremely important to prosecutors later because they would be used to match the idiosyncrasies of Janelle and Barbara's typing to the online messages they had in evidence. It wasn't enough to just prove that the home computer was used to type these messages. Prosecutor Dennis Brooks needed to pin these down to specific individuals in that household.
A very interesting forensic part of this case is that you're dealing with messages written on a computer, and so there's no handwriting analysis because there's no handwriting. How did you tie these messages to Janelle?
Well, that was the challenge. It seemed like the language was crude. It was sort of adolescent-like and was very consistent with what Janelle Potter was like because, even though she had a high school diploma, it was special ed. Her writing in actuality is sort of adolescent. So still, as a prosecutor, I'm not allowed to just get up and start spouting that opinion to the jury. Mm-hmm. I have to have proof. I have to have some kind of formal way of getting to the jury coming to that opinion. And quite frankly, I was lost as to how to do that. And I just resorted to a simple Google search, trying to find out how do I prove someone wrote something that's online. And I came to this forensic field called forensic linguistics that I did not know existed. And, found one professor, Dr. Robert Leonard, up at Hofstra University in New York State, who took an interest in the case. And, quite frankly, I looked on Westlaw looking for other cases where this was used in a criminal context, and they were very, very few in between. None in the state of Tennessee. The only one I really recall was the Unabomber case, where they had gone through some of the letters that the Unabomber had sent out to the media, and they were able to compare it to things they knew he had written. And based on his grammatical tics and tendencies and how he'd phrase things, they were able to piece together that, yeah, it's the same person. And so we had to tackle our case the same way as they had done that.
It was that final complaint by Barbara and Janelle that was able to ensnare them. You see, prosecutors needed a known sample of writing by Barbara and Janelle to compare the online messages and emails to. And they unwittingly, involuntarily, provided it by coming into the sheriff's department and typing out their own harassment statements against the victim's family. They could now prove what Janelle had written online. But how did some online harassment escalate to murder? The answer is, a fictitious CIA agent named Chris had coerced Barbara, and by default Buddy, into orchestrating a murder of the couple. Remember the Chris emails? Janelle had written them, all of them. Janelle was Chris, catfishing her own mother and getting her to do what she wanted, using the very same computer.
As I first looked at the case, it was obvious to me, just by common sense, that this wasn't a real CIA person.
This was not a very sophisticated group of people. Chris wrote to Jamie and Barbara using Janelle's email account. This fictitious character never used an account of his own, probably because he was Janelle. Somehow both the Potter family and Jamie bought into it, though.
Chris popped up in Janelle's emails, and he would basically use her accounts, and people believed that was, I guess they bought that because, after all, he's in the CIA. He can't just use his own CIA accounts to talk about Janelle Potter and her problems.
Did Barbara and Buddy really believe that Chris was a real CIA agent?
I absolutely believe they believed that. And you've got to understand that the Potters operate under a world of delusions. If these same emails went to 99.9% of the population, they would be laughed off. But when it goes to someone that's got an undiagnosed mental illness, then they can believe it is real, and they did.
I mean, it's the absurdity of why a CIA agent would care enough about some petty online name calling. It just boggles the mind.
I know, and it's silly, and as I went through the hundreds and thousands of pages of these emails, I mean, I was constantly amazed and perplexed that anyone would believe this was a real person translating real facts. But, Chris would write to Barbara and report about his surveillance of the Bill Payne residence and say, they're plotting to do something to Janelle. One message was just, I mean, it's hard to say anything's amusing in this case, but it was just, that strange. He says, they're plotting to either kill her or yell at her. There's quite a wide gulf between those two extremes,
Yeah.
But, in Janelle Potter's world, being yelled at in public would probably be pretty a drastic thing to happen to her.
It's pure insanity feeding off insanity in the Potter home. And Janelle is at the center of it all.
Janelle, as I told the jury, she might have a learning disability and as far as school goes, but she had a PhD in manipulation. She knew the buttons to press for her father and her mother. And in knowing those obsessions that her mother had and the paranoias, she was able to use this online fake identity to manipulate her mother.
This is one of the Chris emails to Barbara.
Now they want to hurt and kill Janelle. She's the main one. There's a plot just for Janelle. So make sure she's always with someone and close, very close. Well, I'm happy everyone that needs to carry is carrying and ready because you just don't know right now. I will say in a week or less, it's going to get worse. And nothing else needs to come y'all's way. But with B and J, I think things should go great. How have you been, Mom?
Yes, not only did Chris use Janelle's email account, but he called Barbara Mom as well.
I don't care what they read or think. It goes to show that they are just evil and mean, and that baby was never wanted. And look how they treat it. I hope maybe it should die. It come from the devil, them two making the thing. They can't stand it that Janelle is so pretty and so truthful and just a great person. Lindsay is a good for nothing, and she needs to put a bag over her head and breathe hard. LMAO. Or pull her lip over her head and just swallow. LMAO. Ooh, her fucking ugly face and neck. Saw her at the store today. Icky. She wears short dresses.
This is supposedly what Barbara and Buddy thought was a CIA agent.
That was one of the first telltale signs that, to me, Janelle was the author of a lot of these things, because anytime she would get on topics and pose as someone else, she would always talk about how sweet and pretty and kind Janelle was. And Janelle was very ordinary in her looks. I'll say that. That's been about as generous as I could be. I don't think anyone's going to remark she's a beauty queen, but she would disparage Billie Jean and Billie Jean's friends, call them the worst names imaginable online, and then talk about herself, how pretty and kind and sweet she was.
Buddy didn't know how to use a computer, so all the instruction came directly from Barbara. Investigators would later find Barbara's shredded emails in the back of Buddy's truck that she had printed for him to read. Janelle, through the character of Chris, was manipulating her mother, and her mother was manipulating her father. I told you this story would get crazy. The idea behind Chris seems to have come to Janelle from two places. First, Buddy Potter, who had served in the Vietnam War, liked to brag about having been in the CIA. Barbara loved to brag about it too. It seems to have given her a sense of status. The Potter family was proud of Buddy's alleged CIA involvement, even though Buddy had previously been prosecuted in a federal court in Pennsylvania for claiming military honors that he did not possess. But whether Buddy's CIA involvement was an outright lie, embellishment, or not, Barbara and Janelle still loved to brag about it, and thus Janelle attributed this CIA status to her online persona, Chris.
Well, we were able to assemble enough witnesses that had heard Janelle talk about a Chris in her life, and she would vaguely call him her brother or a close friend, a fellow that she had gone to high school with and close to, and had gone on to work in the CIA.
The second place where the idea for Chris came from was high school. You see, even though Chris was a fictitious character, he was based on a very real person.
Yeah, for a long time, investigators really didn't have an idea that there was any kind of connection between a real person and the fictitious Chris. But, in any catfishing case, the person being catfished wants to know what the other person looks like. And so Janelle had indulged people with pictures and sent them out and say, here's me, here's my car, here's my dog, things like that. And somewhere along the line, a last name was attached to an email or two, and the name went to Chris Jaden, Tgaden. A very unusual name. It's not a name we would see in East Tennessee. Mm-hmm. And Scott Lott from the TBI tracked down a real Chris Jaden who was living in Delaware and had grown up going to high school in Pennsylvania near Philadelphia. And it just so happens he had been a high school classmate of Janelle Potter's. And it just so happens that numerous amounts of those pictures that were being paraded about as Chris, the CIA guy, were actually pictures that Janelle Potter had pulled off of Chris's Facebook profile pictures. The real Chris Jaden.
This is Chris Jaden.
Christopher, and the last name is Jaden.
Chris describes the day police pulled in front of his house asking questions about a murder that happened several states away.
Oh man, I was actually home, outside. I believe I was cutting the grass, doing something outside, and they pulled up in my driveway, and got out, four of them, and it was pretty nerve-wracking having somebody pull up in front of your house and pretty much investigating you on a murder trial.
And what kind of questions were they asking you?
If I really was who I was, did I work for the CIA? Did I have any kind of interaction with Janelle after high school? All that kind of stuff. And they pulled out the pictures that she had taken off my Facebook page, and they were asking me if that was me, and a couple other pictures that were not of me.
Were you ever in the CIA?
No, I was never in the CIA. No. Although maybe I wish I was, It would have been pretty cool, but, no, I was never in the CIA.
And, the value to our prosecution in Chris Jaden was this was a person that other possible suspects as the possible authors of the Chris emails, they wouldn't have known this Chris Jaden.
When they said the name Janelle Potter, did you remember the name immediately?
Oh, yeah. She definitely was one of those people that stuck out in high school, just because she wasn't popular. She was just, like, really, really weird. Everybody knew her because of how weird she was and, just the bizarre stuff that she would do in high school.
And could you describe some of that? What was weird about her?
Like she would faint. She would pull all, like, types of crazy acts. Always complaining she was, like, sick or, had something wrong with her. Anything to, like, drive the attention towards her, she would do it.
And how close were you to her in high school?
I wasn't that close. I wasn't that close to her in high school. I wasn't Mr. Popular in high school, but I was kind of, well known by everybody. And, I wasn't somebody who was going to pick on somebody in high school. She definitely was one of those people that was kind of picked on, but not too much. People just kind of stayed away from her. I used to say hi to her. She used to acknowledge me in school, and I used to acknowledge her back. Just kind of give her that comfort zone,
Yeah. Why did she pick you?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe because I was nice to her. That's probably why she, she kind of picked me. Maybe she developed some kind of thing in her mind. There was something more there than there actually was.
As Chris related to us that he had known Janelle, she'd come up to him at different times. Chris was a good-looking fella. And, his dad was a cop, and he was the exact type of person that Janelle Potter would be attracted to, would like. And, we surmised she probably had a crush on him at some point, and then just, after high school creates this fantasy of a Chris that is like her protector, her big brother that she never had. And, we wind up seeing him in our homicide investigation.
It seems like she might have had some sort of attraction towards you.
Oh, yeah. I mean, especially, back then, I didn't really know much about Facebook, but, you could tell she definitely searched me out. She was definitely looking for me.
Yeah. How did you react to learning that this person had implicated you in a murder?
I was freaked out. I was wondering what was going to happen next. And, not knowing, like, every detail, only what Scott Lott and Dennis Brooks had told me. I just wasn't really sure what was going to happen. I had nothing to do with it, but, at the same time, what did she put out there? What was she saying?
Has this experience kind of freaked you out a little bit?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely. I actually thought about getting rid of Facebook, just for that reason.
Obviously, if you're sitting at home up in Delaware and you get a call from a state where you've never been, about a homicide investigation that you had no idea existed, obviously that's going to be a call you're going to remember the rest of your life.
Police would first be tipped off to this fictitious character of Chris by one of the killers.
They had gotten Jamie Kurt in for an interview, but a few days later, maybe 6 days after the crime, Jamie agreed to come in and do a polygraph. And, investigators always try to identify who's the weak link, and Jamie looked like the weak link.
Jamie Kurt would lead police down into the rabbit hole.
At that point, we're 6 days out from the murder, and the investigators really haven't seen emails that we eventually look at or the Facebook stuff. And after they're sort of wrapping up, Jamie has a question in his heart that he needs to get off his chest, and he just pops up and says, one question I want to know that might answer a whole lot of this stuff is the CIA here. And you can see that, these are two of the finest interrogators in the state of Tennessee. They got blank expressions on their face. There's like, no.
Is the CIA here? CIA? No. That's the question? Yeah. Why did you ask about the CIA? Because he says he works for them.
And they had no idea what he was talking about, but he started mumbling something about a Chris, and that he was like her brother, and he's just mumbling. No one really understands what he's talking about, so they don't really delve into it. But when we start looking at, when we get the search warrants to get the email accounts and content of Janelle's and in Barbara's email accounts, we start seeing Chris, and it starts making sense. And when Jamie asked that question about the CIA, that pretty much prevented any defense he was ever going to have, because it was obvious he believed that. And as I had him on the witness stand, I asked him, I said, in the back of your mind when you asked that question, were you hoping the CIA was there, that they were going to take care of this for you? And he very sheepishly said yes.
Kurd was played by Janelle, and now he was caught by police.
He took the polygraph, he bombed it, and they pressed him about his failing the polygraph after that. And from watching the video, you could tell Jamie was holding something back.
I think you went in there, I want to take care of this situation. I want to take care of people messing with Janelle. People ain't going to mess with my girl no more. She's not my girl. You may say that out loud, but you know in your heart, protect her.
And eventually he's almost shaking when he finally spits out that Buddy was the one that did it. And, that then, at least gave them probable cause that Jamie was involved. They could arrest him, and they then made a controlled phone call between Jamie and Buddy. And Jamie asked a question under their request of Buddy that, I was wondering if you'd gotten rid of everything up at Bill's. And Buddy goes, yeah. And but what was significant was he didn't need any explanation about what Jamie was asking.
Right.
And so with that, they've got probable cause then to go after Buddy and get him arrested. And Buddy comes in all confident in the interrogation room. He knows they don't have anything on him. And they drop that little bombshell on him that we just heard you tell Jamie that you'd gotten rid of the stuff from Bill's. And you can see from the video that threw him, that took him off guard. And eventually, after enough interrogation techniques were applied on him, he very tearfully recounts all the threats that had occurred to his family, and that he basically had no other choice but to do what he did to protect his daughter.
We let him make a phone call to Barbara.
Barbara,
Yeah.
before you find out from somebody else, I want you to know I was involved in it, and I did it.
What?
Some of it.
And he told Barbara, I did it. And that's as close to a confession as we got from him.
Yeah, he calls his wife, and that was probably the most curious phone call I've ever heard, because his wife knows he just got hooked up on 2 murders and taken to the interrogation room, and he calls up and says, I just want you to know I told him I did it. And, the natural reactions most spouses would have in that situation is, what do you mean you did it? You did what? Or,
right.
Or what am I going to do with my life? Am I going to lose the house? And, all those kind of things you would expect out of a spouse. But she very calmly then just tells him, no, you didn't do it. You were sitting right here. And, she's not shocked by what he said. She's shocked by the fact that he would admit it. But I think the jury thought that phone call was probably very significant, because her reaction just isn't a normal reaction.
Your husband confessed to it.
Yeah, but there's questions about that.
So why would he admit to it? Why would he confess?
When they took him, they took no oxygen. They took no medication. And they interviewed him for hours. And when his oxygen gets low, he says things that don't make sense or are incorrect.
This same woman, Barbara Potter, who is denying that her husband killed Payne and Hayworth, had written in an email, "We've had enough. No one wants to kill anyone, but we will." According to Tennessee Bureau of Investigation Special Agent Scott Lott, Barbara would take these messages that Janelle was fabricating and show them to Buddy. Buddy, look what they're trying to do to Janelle. She's the one who eventually pushed him over the edge to kill. And because of Jamie Kurt's testimony, we now know exactly what happened in that house to 2 innocent people who had the unfortunate distinction of having crossed paths with the Potters. After months of manipulation, Buddy Potter was ready to take action against the people who had threatened to rape, kill, and even decapitate his daughter. according to Chris, the CIA agent. So on the morning of January 31st, 2012, Buddy called Jamie Curd. Even Jamie's involvement had been orchestrated by Janelle. She had suggested, through Chris, to bring Jamie along after becoming an object of his affection. Curd had agreed to go. According to his testimony at trial, he didn't know why he was going, just that he was helping out Buddy with something. The two drove to the home of Billy Payne, Billie Jean Hayworth, and their newborn baby. The front door was unlocked. Jamie and Buddy let themselves into the house. Jamie stood by the front door blocking its exit, while Buddy Potter walked into the home and down the hallway. He went into the bedroom, where Billy had just woken up. Billy saw him and said, "What the hell?" That's when he was shot in the face. Even though Billy was already dead, Buddy Potter, for some reason, slit Billy's throat. Elsewhere in the house, Billie Jean Hayworth heard the commotion, grabbed her baby, and tried to run to the front door, where she encountered Jamie, blocking the exit. Instead of trying to push through, she ran back through the hallway and into the nursery, where Buddy Potter caught up with her and shot her in the side of the head, execution style. For some reason, he did not have the heart to shoot the baby, who remained in his mother's death grip until police arrived later that day. All this senselessness because a lonely woman in a dysfunctional family got access to social media.
No more Christmases together. No more sitting around the table, listening to Billy laugh and tell jokes. We go to a graveyard now, clean up the grave and put fresh flowers. We don't do anything like we did before.
How big was this case? How many emails are we talking about?
We wound up introducing 207 pages of emails, plus I don't know how many pages of Facebook documents, but those 207 pages were culled down from many more than that, and they weren't organized, they weren't date organized at all, and I had to sort through and try to figure out what's important and what's not. It's a very arduous task.
Jamie Curd, who cooperated with police, took a plea deal of 25 years in prison. Marvin Buddy Potter was convicted and sentenced to 2 consecutive life sentences. Janelle and Barbara were also convicted and sentenced to 2 concurrent life sentences. Either way, they will never again log on to Facebook.
The one question I gave to the jury at the end of my comments, I said, I want you to close your eyes and imagine this case ever happening without Janelle Potter. And I want you to ask that same question about Barbara Potter. And if you know this isn't going to happen without their involvement, then you know in your heart what your verdict needs to be. And in Tennessee, just like a lot of states, we have a criminal responsibility for the conduct of another statute. In our state, it says if you direct, solicit, aid, or attempt to aid another person in the commission of an offense with the intent that it happen, then you're just as guilty. So if I ask you to kill my spouse and I mean it, then and you do it, then I could be found guilty of that crime. And in this case, we had what was probably a solicitation when you look at the entirety of the conversations, but we also had the attempt to aid firmly in place because Buddy was a disabled guy. He wasn't very mobile, and we had a crime where he's basically gunning down 2 people who were younger and more mobile than him, and he required the help of someone else. And early on in the email correspondence, when the conspiracy was happening between the 2 women, Barbara Potter had suggested Chris as being the person that would help Buddy, or Buddy would help Chris. And obviously Chris wasn't able to commit the offense because he didn't exist. And so at some point early, the first part of 2011, Chris started suggesting Jamie as a person that had a beef with Bill and would be willing to do something. And it takes several months for Barbara to then catch on to that being a good idea.
Social media was created to bring people together, but it's a tool. And just like any other tool, it can be used for different purposes. Some good, some sinister. In this case, once the harassment started, Sheriff Mike Reese had suggested to Buddy Potter that he should throw that computer in the Watauga Lake. He saw that the combination of a computer and Janelle was leading to too many problems. Buddy dismissed the advice, replying, "Sheriff, my daughter stays at the house all the time, and that computer is all she has." Buddy should have taken the sheriff's advice. Just out of curiosity, do you use social media?
Yeah, I use Facebook probably more than I should.
Special thanks to prosecutor Dennis Brooks. His book, which just came out, is called Too Pretty to Live: The Catfishing Murders of East Tennessee. It was also just turned into a documentary on Investigation Discovery. So check your local listings for that. Thanks also to Tom Brock and Troy Whitson from the Sound Asylum Recording Studio in Johnson City, Tennessee, for providing remote recording services. That does it for another episode of Sword and Scale. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, stay safe.
Holy moly, this is Heather Kaplan calling from San Jose, California. I am absolutely hooked, addicted, in love. If I could marry your show, I would. Hands down, best podcast. Got all my friends listening. In fact, I just talked to a random person, kind of hesitated it due to one of your podcasts, but I did tell a random person on Caltrain. She took your information. It is spreading like wildfire in the Bay Area. Keep it up. You guys are the bomb. Oh, can't wait. Never stop. Keep going. Bomb, bomb, bomb. Okay, bye.
Mike, thank you so much for putting this together. I know that it takes a ton of your time and energy and takes you away from your family and loved ones to give us this podcast every other week. It is so wonderful, and I'm calling to say keep up the good work, and also calling to say thanks for the outro music every week. So I feel like I sit there and bob my head while I just absorb everything I just listened to for the last 60 to 120 minutes. And it makes my drives to and from work far richer. So thank you so much. Keep up the good work from the middle of America. We will keep listening, and we will keep putting the word out to you. Take care, buddy.
Sword and Scale contains adult themes and violence. It is not intended for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Seemed insensitive, and so she got angry about that. And they argued upstairs in their bedroom. She threw stuff at him, stuff she had around, mascara, a towel. What did the defendant do? Well, he went and got his gun.
Hello and welcome back to Season 3, Episode 57 of Sword and Scale, a show that reveals that the worst monsters are real. Hope everyone had a wonderful holiday break, and we know you've been waiting for a while, so we're going to get right to the story. We kick off this season with a two-parter of a horrible crime. It's one thing to kill someone. It's quite another to show your work to the victim's friends and family like some sort of macabre trophy. That's how Miami-Dade State Attorney Catherine Fernandez-Rundle described the defendant's actions in this case. We'll tell you all about it with the help of Kathy Rousson from CourtChatter.com. Stay right there. When Jennifer was 16, she met a man named Gabriel Vieira. A month later, she got pregnant, and her daughter Isabel was born 9 months after that. Despite the young age, the two tried to make it work. They moved in together and tried to play family. But a few years later, it was clear that this relationship had come to an end. Her daughter Isabel was about 4 years old at the time. Rather than move back home, Jennifer and Isabel moved to an efficiency close to home, remaining independent, even though her only means of support was waitressing.
She lived in an efficiency close, a couple blocks away from my house for a while. And then we moved into Coconut Grove, and she lived in the same building that I lived.
This is Jennifer's mother.
Now, when Jennifer split up with Gabriel, did she have primary custody of Isabel at that point?
Yes.
Now, did there come a point when primary custody was shifted from Jennifer to her father, Gabriel?
Yes.
And about when did that occur?
She had to have been 5 because she was in kindergarten already.
And was this a voluntary arrangement between Jennifer and Gabriel to have Isabel start living with Gabriel? Did Gabriel have to take Jennifer to court to get custody of Isabel?
No.
Was Jennifer ever accused of being an unfit mother, to your knowledge?
No.
Social norms dictate that the mother is usually the one with primary custody. In this case, that was so at first, and then it wasn't. This is precisely the sort of thing that's ripe for exploitation by defense attorneys.
Did Jennifer continue to have visitation with Isabel?
Yes.
Did she financially support Isabel?
Yes.
How often would Isabel visit with Jennifer?
Every other weekend, pretty much.
And was that visitation, again, a voluntary arrangement between Isabel's father and her, or something that was court order intervention?
No, it was voluntary.
A few years later, Jennifer meets a new man at Denny's, where she's waitressing.
Well, I believe he was a regular of hers at Denny's, so I'm not clear on exactly when they met. But I would say, I don't know, 2010 sometime, maybe 2011.
This man's name is Derek Vernon Medina. Now, this story hits a little close to home for me. The couple met because Derek Medina was a regular at the Denny's restaurant on 87th and Bird Road. I used to live on 87th Avenue in Miami, just a few blocks away from Bird Road. I've been to this Denny's. I may have even been there around the time Jennifer Alonso was employed there. I don't remember. But to know that I may have been sitting there enjoying a Grand Slam breakfast while all this madness was brewing around me is sickening. Just 1 month after the couple met at the restaurant, they eloped.
And do you know how long after they met did they get married?
I don't know, it wasn't very long, maybe a month or two, but that's a guess, because I don't know exactly when they met.
Did you know that they were going to get married? How did you find out?
Jennifer told me they'd gone to Puerto Rico on vacation and they got a marriage license while they were there.
The newlyweds, Derek and Jennifer, moved to Derek's aunt's house. The marriage was rocky from the very beginning.
Now, during this first marriage, did Jennifer and Derek live together continuously, or were there ever any periods of breakup?
There were times when they would have fights and he would bring her to my house. I don't remember how many times that happened, but they argued.
So how would you learn about these arguments and breakups?
She would be at my house with all her things, pretty much.
And do you have any recollection of about how many times this occurred where Derek would bring Jennifer to your house with her belongings?
That I can recall, a couple of times.
And were these brief breakups, or did they go on for a while?
They usually reconciled pretty quick, about a week, maybe, a few days.
And after that brief period, would Derek eventually take Jennifer back?
Yes.
As is usually the case with dysfunctional relationships like this, there comes an end.
Now, do you know when the first marriage ended for good? When he didn't take her back?
I think it was in 2012 sometime.
Do you know which one filed for divorce?
I believe Derek filed for divorce.
And was that divorce eventually finalized and gone through?
Yes, to my understanding.
And after their divorce, or their separation, I should say, where did Jennifer live initially?
She stayed with me for a while, for a couple months.
And then after that?
She got up enough money and she lived in a condominium that my husband had before we were married.
There are people that make mistakes and learn from them. And then there are people that keep making the same mistake over and over again.
When did they remarry?
I'm not exactly sure because I didn't know that it was going to happen, it was happening, and that they were even seeing each other seriously again.
The remarried couple moves into a 2-story townhouse on Miller and Red Road, the last home they would share together.
And do you know who owned that condo where they lived during the second marriage?
I believe it was Derek and his aunt.
Oh, I think I should mention, Jennifer's dead, and her husband, Derek Medina, killed her. Allegedly.
So taking you to the week that Jennifer died, okay, first week of August of 2013, where Jennifer and Derek resided in that condo, that townhouse in South Miami at that time.
Yes, to my understanding, yes.
And was Isabel in school during this period?
Well, it was summer break still.
The summer, okay.
Yeah.
Had Isabel stayed at your house during any period that week?
Yes, she stayed with me that weekend prior.
The weekend prior to the homicide?
Yes.
Okay.
I wasn't feeling well, so I normally would take Isabel home, but I asked for them to come and pick her up because I wasn't feeling well. So.
And by them you mean Derek and Jennifer?
Yes.
Okay. And so that Sunday, did they come and pick up Isabel from your house?
Yes, we did.
And you remember how old was Isabel at the time of Jennifer's death?
10.
Now, at the time of her death, did you ever know Jennifer to leave Isabel home alone?
No, not to my knowledge.
During the times that Isabel would stay with you, when you would watch her, did you ever leave her alone by herself?
No.
Now here's a bizarre question, which will make a hell of a lot more sense in just a second.
Did you have a Facebook account at the time of Jennifer's death?
Yes.
Did Derek and Jennifer also have Facebook accounts?
Yes.
And were you Facebook friends with both of them?
Yes.
Did you have a Facebook account? It would have been a bizarre question in just about any trial, except in this one, it was particularly relevant. Imagine, for a second, that the following happens. It's August 8th, 2013, just a little after 11 a.m. You're sitting there checking your phone. Maybe you're on a bathroom break. It's okay, we all do it. We all check our phones. It's a thing. Anyway, maybe you're checking your Facebook account. You're scrolling through, looking at what your friends and family have been up to for the last couple of days, maybe the last couple of hours. And as you scroll through others' vacation pictures and ads for things that you don't really want, you see a horrifying image. An image of perhaps a friend, a coworker, or a family member slumped on the ground of a kitchen, covered in blood, and obviously dead. The post reads, "Rest in peace, Jennifer Alfonso." A post prior to that, in all text, reads, "I'm going to prison or death sentence for killing my wife. Love you guys, miss you guys, take care, Facebook people. You'll see me in the news. My wife was punching me, and I'm not going to stand for it anymore with the abuse. So I did what I did. Hope you understand me." This is the post that Derek Medina put on his Facebook page for all of his 150 friends and family to see. The post is followed by exactly the confusion and panic you would expect. Concerned friends and family members post, "What happened?" But there's no response. It would be hours before police confirmed what had happened. In the meantime, Derek Medina will calmly put on his coat, drive to his father's house, tell him what happened, and together they'll go to a local police station where he'll turn himself in.
Did there come a time when someone came into the lobby of the South Miami Police Department who later became known to you as Derek Medina?
Yes, at around 11:32, two people walked into the lobby, and a gentleman advised that he had to turn himself in. And I was finishing up a phone call, and I said, "For what?" And he said he just shot and killed his wife. And the other gentleman with him was his father.
This is Communications Officer Christine Matthey. He was working there as a dispatcher that morning when Medina and his father walked into the police station. A pane of bulletproof glass separating her from the lobby where Medina was standing.
Okay, so he gives you this address and you're right away starting to make calls. Okay, but are you also still continuing to have a conversation with him?
After he told me everything, he sat down, and then I proceeded to do dispatching and communications, jobs. And I want to say his father walked up to ask a question, but I went back to doing dispatching.
So you did not have any conversation with his father?
No, I kept everything to a minimum with the father. The father wasn't on scene there, so I wanted to do just strictly dispatching and strictly speak with, or if I had any questions, direct them to Derek Medina.
Okay. Now you just said once he told you everything. Okay. So can you please tell us what it is he told you?
Just the entering of the police station, the advising he needed to turn himself in, that he shot his wife. He gave me the address. He gave me the location. He stated it was in self-defense. And I asked for officer safety. I asked him where the gun was located. He told me in the closet. And then he said his wife came at him with a knife. So I asked, where's the knife? And he said, in the kitchen. And I said, okay. And I believe he specifically said a drawer.
That's when police officer John Van Trier walks into the lobby.
When I walked into the station, the defendant was sitting in one of the chairs there in the lobby. And the defendant spontaneously stated to me, you can go ahead and search me. I have no weapons. You can go ahead and handcuff me.
And what was your response to that?
I then asked him the question, may I help you?
Did he respond?
Yes.
Okay. What was the response?
At that point, he responded, I was involved with an argument with my wife, and she was hitting me.
Okay.
And she's been hitting me for a long time. So I shot her.
Okay. And did you ask any follow-up questions as to that?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Well, actually, yes, I'm sorry. I asked where the incident occurred at. He stated that it occurred in his apartment, and that he also had a 10-year-old girl in the apartment.
Oh yeah, the 10-year-old girl, she's still in the apartment with her dead mother.
It was at a later point in time he mentioned the 10-year-old stepdaughter.
What did he say about that?
He said that she was still in the house, but that she was unaware of what was going on, that he put her upstairs in a bedroom, and he locked her in a bedroom, but that she didn't know what was going on. And the last things that I asked him is by that time, South Miami officers were on scene. They started to speak with him. They gave him a pat down, and he was being escorted into the back. The last thing I asked was what was the little girl's name, because that was very important for the officers on scene at the apartment to know. He told me her name. He was ushered through the doors.
Police, of course, also dispatch fire rescue, but it's way too late.
Will you please tell, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, what the defendant told you when you were requesting fire rescue?
Yes, ma'am. At that point, the defendant spontaneously stated, she's dead. I know she's dead. I emptied my .380 in her, 5 shots.
Did you respond to that in any way?
No, I did not.
Verbally?
Verbally, no.
Okay, fine. And so what happened at that point?
At that point, I went ahead and I handcuffed the defendant, and I escorted him over to our cell area where he was placed and secured inside a cell.
Okay.
For some reason, defense attorney Sam Zengani tries to punch holes in the witness testimony of the communications officer who testified that Medina looked stressed after allegedly killing his wife.
You indicated on direct examination that my client appeared stressed and agitated while he was in the South Miami Police Department lobby. Do you recall saying that?
Yes, he was calm, sitting in the chair, but you could tell that he was stressed.
Was there anything in particular that he did on the video? Because you'll agree with me, the video will show how he looked and acted during that time, correct?
Yes.
Is there anything on the video that you watched in our presence, along with the presence of members of the jury, that would show somebody acting stressed or agitated? Because I didn't see that. Can you direct me?
The defense is getting a little cheeky there by saying they didn't see anything. That's testifying, and they're not allowed to testify.
I'll withdraw that. Could you draw my attention on the video that was entered into evidence where you saw my client acting agitated or stressed? If you want to look at it again, I'm more than happy to.
No, that's a high-angle video shot. You're not going to see the same shot that I see at eye level looking at a person who's sitting in front of me. So on that video, he just looks calm.
So you're telling me a camera angle takes away whether or not someone looks stressed or agitated?
I'm saying if you have a camera angle high up looking down, you're going to mostly see the top of someone's head. You're not going to see their face.
You see his face in that video. So you're saying you just see the top of his head in that video?
No, I'm just saying.
Sistine, answer the question.
I did ask her a question. The question is, are you saying that you just see the top of his head in that video?
No, you see him.
Judge, may I? May I ask the witness to step down? I'm going to play the...
Mr. Zabni, let her finish her answer, please.
Sure.
No, you see him. He is calm. He is sitting in the chair. But I'm telling you, he was also stressed. I could see it in his face.
This entire surveillance video of Derek Medina turning himself in at the South Miami Police Department is available online. In it, he does not look stressed. In fact, he looks very calm. The way he casually strolls in and walks to the counter and then takes a seat as if waiting for a dentist's appointment. It's eerie.
When you put him in the holding station, did you have any conversations with him in the holding station?
Not that I recall, no.
Were you in close proximity to Mr. Medina while he was in the holding station?
I was approximately 6, maybe 7 feet away from him.
Kind of like what we are, a little bit closer maybe?
More or less, yeah.
Okay. And how long were you there while he was in the holding cell?
I was there with him approximately an hour and a half.
And it sounds like he was a chatty Cathy in the lobby. He didn't make any statements to you in the holding cell?
As far as I recall, no.
As far as you can recall?
That's correct.
So your testimony is that in the first 2 minutes of having communication with Derek Medina, he gave you 3 or 4 statements, correct?
Yes, sir.
And after that, for an hour and a half while in the South Miami holding station, you have no interaction, no verbal interaction with him whatsoever?
No.
And that wasn't because he was refusing. He didn't ask for a lawyer or anything to that effect. It wasn't like you weren't allowed to talk to him, correct?
That's correct.
The prosecution counters.
And so was it your job to be asking him questions?
No.
Was it your job to be investigating a possible murder suspect?
No, sir.
Next, we hear from Officer Frank Moreno, the first at the scene of the murder at 5555 Southwest 67th Avenue.
Now, once enough officers had arrived, was a decision made to force entry into the residence?
Yes.
And what was used to breach the door?
A pickaxe and a sledgehammer provided by a Miami-Dade Fire Rescue.
So at some point thereafter, fire rescue had arrived?
Yes.
And once the door was breached, first, did you do that yourself?
With the help of Officer Hernandez.
All right. And were you the first officer through the door once the door was breached?
Yes.
And did other officers follow right behind you?
Yes.
And did you enter with guns drawn?
Yes.
Can you tell us what room you observed upon first making entry into the residence, sir?
There was a room to my right that appeared to be like a living room.
And what was the next room or area you observed?
There was a kitchen right after the living room. There's a kitchen to my right.
Okay. And did you observe anything inside of the kitchen?
There was a deceased female lying on the kitchen floor.
What position was she in when you observed her?
She had her knees bent back. She had fallen back, and her head was resting against the kitchen cabinet, and she had apparent gunshot wounds.
Was the female moving?
No.
Was she showing any signs of life when you observed her?
No.
Did you observe any weapons around her?
There was a firearm on the kitchen floor.
Other than the female, did you observe anyone else on the first floor of the residence?
No.
After clearing that first floor of the residence, did you and your fellow officers then proceed upstairs to the second floor?
Yes.
This is where the tragedy seems to become more than just a headline. Officer Moreno's description of a little girl cowering upstairs makes this story much more personal, because you can imagine what that little girl is feeling. You can sense that she knows what's happened and cannot face it.
And at that point, did you make contact with someone who later became known to you as Isabel Vieira?
Yes.
Where did you locate Isabel?
She was located in a bedroom, a landing. The door was closed, but unlocked. I opened the door, and she was sitting on the bed with a red blanket.
And for the record, was Isabel the child?
Yes.
And what was she doing sitting on the bed with the blanket?
She was watching TV. The TV was turned up all the way.
She was watching TV, and the TV was turned up all the way. Remember, there were gunshots in this home less than an hour ago. There's no way that 10-year-old Isabel didn't hear them.
And that room she was in, was it locked?
No.
And what, if anything, did you say to Isabel upon encountering her, sir?
I asked her who was there with her.
Did you tell her anything else?
I told her that we needed to leave the residence.
And did she comply?
Yes.
Other than Isabel, did you locate anyone else upstairs?
No.
So she was alone?
Yes.
What did you proceed to do with Isabel after you told her we have to leave?
I told her to bring her blanket. She had a red blanket. I told her to bring it with her. And so she brought the blanket, and I walked her halfway down the stairs, and I stopped.
Now, in order to exit the apartment out the door you came, was it necessary for you to walk past the kitchen where you observed the deceased female?
Yes.
And what, if any, precautions did you take in terms of preventing Isabel from viewing the kitchen area?
I wrapped her in the blanket. This is why I wanted her to bring the blanket, because that this is the situation that I was going to be presented with. So I wrapped her with the blanket completely, and I brought her down the rest of the stairway, and there was personnel standing at the entrance to the threshold of the kitchen, and then I had my back to the body, and I walked the little girl past the kitchen while making sure that even if her field of vision was able to break through the blanket, my body would prevent her from seeing what was behind me. And then there was other people behind me to do the same. I walked her out of the residence, and I gave her to a female officer from South Miami.
So were you able to prevent her, to your knowledge, as far as you know, from seeing her mother's body?
Yes.
Young Isabel is escorted out of her home in a red blanket. She will never see her mother alive again.
When you were first entering the residence and breached it, had you noticed the cameras around?
No.
Did you later learn that your actions that day had indeed been caught on video?
Yes.
And have you seen that video?
Yes.
Derek Medina appears to have been a very paranoid man. Not only did he own a handgun, but his townhome was wired with a surveillance system which captured much of the events of that morning. According to neighbors, he was also quite reclusive and strange.
The windows are not even open. There's cameras all over the place. He is just into himself, by himself, and his wife just came in and out.
When I first met him, I saw this guy. He was kind of looking at me. I think he was walking around he walks around with a concealed gun. So he tried to be like the neighborhood watch guy. He's always there late night, and this was always weird to me. He's always kind of looking around and trying to be a hero. And
Medina was a strange bird indeed. Bushy eyebrowed, covered in cheap-looking tattoos, with a bit of a crazy stare. We'll tell you more about this man later. But for now, let's hear defense attorney Sam Zengane attempt to paint the accused as a decent guy. Because, after all, the child was not injured.
When you entered the residence, and you went upstairs to retrieve the child, did she appear to have any kind of injuries?
No.
Did she have any kind of physical trauma or anything that would substantiate that she was in danger in any kind of physical way?
She was not injured.
So there was no indication of any kind of physical injury or anything that would affect her physical health, correct?
I didn't see anything that would affect her physical health.
Officer Moreno goes on to say that according to the child, Derek Medina had instructed her to stay in the room upstairs and not come out for any reason.
Let's talk about the kitchen. You said that there was a firearm there, correct?
Yes.
Was the firearm loaded to your knowledge?
I don't know.
Did you handle the firearm in any way?
No.
How many people entered that kitchen during the initial sweep?
As far as I know, only the firefighters went in to make sure that the victim had no signs of life.
So would that would it be fair for me to say that this would require them to touch the victim and to be in close proximity to where she is?
I don't know what protocol fire rescue uses.
But respectfully, Detective, you just told me they went to check for signs of life. Signs of life.
I would assume they would have to, but I was not observing what they were doing.
It seems like the defense's case was all about disproving the testimony of every witness for the prosecution, and thereby creating reasonable doubt, even though there was no reasonable underlying theory behind their case.
But whatever work you do in terms of your analysis is done pursuant to the request of someone involved in this case, yes? Yes, sir. Okay. Don't have to call me sir, it makes me feel a little old. So, here are a few questions that I have for you. Today, in front of this jury, can you make a determination of how that piece of formica was dislodged from the cabinet? No. Do you know how much force it would require to dislodge that piece of formica? No. And you're not able to form an opinion with regards to those two issues, correct? That's correct. Is there a test that can be performed to make a determination as to how that piece of formica came off the cabinet door?
As I had mentioned earlier, there's multiple variables, meaning the weight of the object that's performing the damage, the speed at what is taken, and the angle. So there are multiple variables, so there could be multiple scenarios that could cause it to break, or even a greater force that is possible.
And if you were to test a slew of these variables, would there be a test that would make a determination as to how that piece of formica was dislodged from the cabinet door? What's been described as formica? I don't know if it is.
Correct, I don't know.
Is there a test?
I'm not aware of it.
Next up was one of the detectives on the scene. If you'll excuse my bluntness, she's a short female detective with a heavy accent, and she's an easy target for the defense.
What is your current occupation?
I'm a detective with the Miami-Dade Police Department.
How long have you been with the Miami-Dade Police Department?
13 years, going on 13 years.
Detective Annabella Casca, though, is no pushover. She holds her own just fine.
The last question the prosecution asked you was in regards to the size of the kitchen, yeah? Do you recall that? Yes. And you said less than 6 feet in terms of disc length and less than 4 feet in terms of width, correct? You have a specific, do you know exactly what the numbers are? I can tell you it's in your report, so if you want to check out your report.
It's 3.6 and 5.6.
Correct. Okay, and 3.6 means 3 feet 6 inches?
That is correct.
And 5.6 means 5 feet 6 inches, correct?
Correct.
You're aware that the decedent in this case was laying on a rug in the kitchen, correct?
Yes, sir.
And would you agree with me that, did you measure the size of the rug?
No, I didn't. Not me, particularly.
Would you agree with me that the rug took up maybe half of the size of the kitchen? Do you recall?
Wasn't that big.
Okay. Now, in terms of, and I know it may not be your responsibility, do you know what luminol is?
You ever watch those TV crime shows like CSI where a detective holds up a black light in a crime scene and you see a wall light up with blood spatter patterns? Well, blood doesn't actually glow like that. A chemical known as luminol is used to create a chemical reaction with the iron in the blood to make it fluoresce. The defense thinks they have something here because luminol was not used at this crime scene. But Detective Casca is quick to shut them down.
I do.
Okay, what is luminol?
Luminol is a chemical that is used when there is we suspect that there is a cleaning job on the crime that produces shedding of blood. If blood is present at a crime scene, there is no need for luminol because we can see the blood. But if the crime scene was a cleanup case, then luminol is used to fluorescent the areas of blood that are in contact with the blood.
So if you can see the blood, there's no point in using luminol. Next, the defense tries to paint the picture of an inept investigation because the rug which the victim was lying on was, again, not tested with luminol.
Did you guys check the rug for any kind of impact spatter?
The rug was saturated with the post-mortem bleeding of the victim.
But that saturation was the top part of the rug.
The saturation was all over the rug.
Well, here, I'm going to show you what's marked as Exhibit 72. Okay, take a look at it. You see it? You're telling me that this portion, the bottom portion of the rug, is saturated in blood? I don't see it. Can you come point it out to the members of the jury? Can you do that?
Sir, if the photograph did not, was able to capture that, there was a lot of blood in that crime.
So you're telling me that the angle of this photograph, blood is somehow invisible to the naked eye? Because I don't see any blood anywhere south of the victim. Do you? Show me. Okay. And just to clarify, did you check to see if there's impact spatter on the rug?
No, I didn't.
If Jennifer Alfonso was standing, she was shot further down, fell down to her knees, and then fell backwards, and there was impact spatter on this rug. You didn't check for it, correct? Right?
I would have to explain myself on that question. I did not check. But what you were trying to
But it's really, here's the thing, actually.
It's not completely, correct.
Okay, well let me ask you this, and I'll ask it again. Did you check for impact splatter anywhere south or in this, you agree with
He questions its science.
3 courses, 3 40-hour courses, which means how long have you been a detective? 10 years. So in 10 years, you took 3 weeks in that 10 years to take classes on blood stain pattern analysis. Correct?
He goes into a line of questioning which leads jurors to believe that blood-stain pattern analysis is more of an art than a science. He questions its scientific merit. And then he gets into the issue of the knife, or the knives.
Were you in the kitchen when the knives were removed from the drawers? Well, I'm sorry, when the knife was removed from the drawer and photographed and back?
No, I was not.
You see, there was a drawer full of knives, but only one of them had blood on it, so it was the only one taken into evidence.
Were you present when the instruction was given that only one knife out of that drawer be taken into custody, or into evidence? Don't take it out into custody, I will.
Counsel, since I was not the detective impounding the item in question that you're asking me, you will have to ask the detective that actually impounded that.
And do you know who that was?
I don't recall.
And the reason why I ask you, and I understand that, is because I want to know if you were present when that position was taken, where only one of the knives was...
You will have to ask the detective that was in charge of impounding that piece of evidence.
Did you see the drawer of knives at any point while you were in doing your investigation?
Of course.
Okay. When only one of the knives was taken out, did you question why are we only taking one of the knives?
Once again, you need to ask the person who collected the item. I was not in charge of that.
I understand that, Detective, but what I'm saying is, as someone that has the amount of experience that you have, did you find it odd that only one of a slew of knives was retrieved from that drawer?
Do I find it odd?
I'm asking you, on the night in question, when you were doing your due diligence and they opened a drawer and they picked out one knife, and there was a ton of
I'm pretty sure with my experience and with the experience of my other colleagues is that if there are 10 knives and they're all 10 knives except for one has apparent blood spatter on it, then we will take the one that shows blood spatter or apparent blood spatter.
Apparent blood splatter?
Correct.
Again with the luminol.
So, did you see the knife that had the apparent blood splatter on it?
I don't recall, because since I was not involved with the collection of that particular item.
Did you see the other knives? Let me rephrase that question. Were you there when the knives were being analyzed?
No, I already explained that to you.
The prosecution then takes over and clears up the whole luminol thing once and for all.
I want to go back initially to some things that were discussed yesterday.
Okay.
Specifically with respect to the luminol. Do you remember luminol used for as far as crime scene investigative work?
Once again, luminol is basically a chemical that reacts to the hemoglobin, which is the iron in the blood. And we use this when we suspect that a cleanup job has been done at a crime scene. Since luminol reacts to the hemoglobin, what this, in layman's terms, is that it fluoresces. It brings out a blue bright light because it reacts to that hemoglobin. So we can then say that blood was in contact with this item or floor or a wall, and it was cleaned up.
In this particular investigation, did you have any indications based upon your review of the crime scene that there had been a cleanup involved?
No, sir.
Did you smell any chemicals indicative of a possible cleanup having been involved?
No, sir.
Bleach or anything of that nature?
No, sir.
Lead Detective Yvonne Garcia is then questioned about the crime scene sketch. This will become important later because the defense is trying to prove that Derek Medina would have been in danger of his life with a crazed knife-wielding woman in a tiny kitchen.
So take us into the scene, beginning with where the body was located, please.
The victim was located inside the kitchen of the townhouse.
And can you describe the position she was in when you observed her?
She was laying supine, basically body up, face up, and she was bent from her knees down. Her knees were behind her, feet were behind her, and she was lying back.
Did you observe any apparent or obvious signs of injuries on the deceased?
Yes.
And what type of injuries did you observe in your plain view?
Multiple gunshot wounds to her body.
And did you observe any items of physical evidence around her body?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What was that?
Casings, a firearm, a knife. There was a projectile located afterwards, after we moved the body.
Was there a sketch prepared in this case?
Yes, there was.
All right. And who prepared that sketch?
Detective Pasqua.
Now, can you describe a little bit the process that goes into preparing a crime scene sketch in a case like this?
Basically, we take measurements. We pick two locations that are not going to be moving, walls, roadways, things like that. From the walls that we choose, whichever walls they may be, and they're different in every scene, you would measure the distance from the piece of evidence from one wall and then to another wall so that we could go back and plug it back in if we had to.
Now, first, did you sketch both floors of this residence?
We only sketched the first floor.
And why was that?
Because that's where the victim was.
Was there some evidence found on the top floor?
Yes, it was.
All right. But did you consider the primary scene to be the initial first floor?
Yes, we did.
All right. Once Detective Pasqua prepares the sketch, what is done with it at that point?
She shows it to me. I basically approve it. Once I approve it, it gets filed and sent copied to homicide.
And why do you have to approve the sketch?
Because I'm the lead, and the lead of all homicides has to approve the final sketch.
So why would the lead not be aware of crucial aspects of the crime scene? The defense argues.
Were you aware that the victim came up and down the stairs multiple times?
That night, no.
Were you aware that the victim, on the morning of, entered the kitchen and went into the first cabinet to your left and took something out of there? Were you aware of that?
No, I was not.
If you were aware of it, would you have looked to see what's inside that cabinet?
Sure. We would have probably looked in there anyway.
Did you look in there?
We open up things looking for weapons.
I think it's important to point out at this point that defense attorney Sam Zengani has a really weird habit when he's questioning witnesses. He directly...
Especially long-time, or avid, I should say, trial watchers, this made them the very most crazy watching this trial. What we do see quite often is we'll see a witness in the witness box. When they go to answer a question, they will turn to the jury, especially an expert witness. They'll turn to the jury and answer it, or we'll see it and say to the witness, please, jury, yeah, and they'll turn. So that we're used to seeing the only time somebody will turn to the jury and actually speak like that when he's in closing statements. But this attorney, I've never, ever seen this in I don't know how many cases I've covered. He took the lectern and picked it up and physically turned it and faced the jury and asked every single question of the witness who he's now not facing. He asked every question while looking at the jury. It was the strangest thing. And then when the prosecutor got up there, they would have to physically turn the lectern back toward the witness. It was truly the oddest thing I have ever seen. And it must not, I would think it would make the jury uncomfortable at some point because he also made facial expressions. You could see sometimes he almost rolled his eyes. But if it would make the jury uncomfortable, they would have said something, I would think, and then the judge would have made him stop, and she didn't. And so that's how he did it the entire trial. But I have never seen anything like that.
It seemed really gimmicky, like he was trying to relate to the jury one-on-one.
I would say it was very gimmicky. That's a good word for it.
But yeah, he got called out on it while he was questioning one of the witnesses. I think it was one of the detectives or the lead detective, where she basically just said, "Are you talking to me?"
Right, exactly. And now here's a funny part that many didn't pick up on. The cameraman who was filming the trial during maybe during a sidebar or a break or something, focused in on a piece of paper on the lectern that says, "Do not move this lectern." Like when they were trying to do some focusing in between shots. And I know the cameraman had to have done that on purpose.
Oh, man, that's very funny.
Yeah.
Next episode, we're going to focus on exactly who Derek Medina is. He left a social media trail, fully detailing his personality, and will uncover every stone, looking for every worm right here on Sword and Scale.
Hello, Serial listeners. Sarah Koenig here with a quick message before we start the episode, which is that in case you haven't heard, we have a new show. It's called S-Town, and it's a 7-part podcast hosted by This American Life producer Brian Reed. I am so excited about it. It is weird. It is beautiful. It has a plot that goes in fascinating directions I did not see coming. All 7 chapters of the S-Town podcast are available now at S-Town Podcast or wherever you get your podcasts.
Support for Serial comes from Rocket Mortgage by Quicken Loans. When it comes to the big decision of choosing a mortgage lender, work with one that aims to protect your best interests. Rocket Mortgage provides a transparent, online process that helps you understand all the details of your home loan. You can even adjust the rate and length of your
podcasts.
Support
walks forward, flanked by 2 men, while 3 men from the helicopter, the U.S. Special Operations, shows that the scrubby rocky hills all around the truck machine guns.
NMLSconsumeraccess.org, number 3030.
About a year and a half ago, clips from this video appeared on every major news broadcast. It showed the rescue of a guy named Bo Bergdahl. He was the U.S. soldier who was captured by the Taliban and held captive for just shy of 5 years. The Taliban made the video. The first thing you see is a couple of guys in traditional Afghan clothes. They've got scarves on their heads or covering their faces, and they're holding machine guns. They're standing next to a silver pickup truck. The front hood is up. In the back seat of the truck, the door is open. A bare-headed figure is sitting with his knees up against the seat in front of him. The camera closes in, and you see this pale young man. And that's Bergdahl. His head is shaved. He looks sort of like a cult leader from a 70s movie. He can't keep his eyes open properly. They're bothering him. He keeps blinking and rubbing them. A wider shot shows that the scrubby, rocky hills all around the truck are dotted with other guys, Taliban, holding rifles or rocket-propelled grenades. 1 or 2 of the guys lean in to where Bergdahl is sitting, and they're talking to him. He's looking at their faces. One guy says something in Pashto, which is translated on screen as, "Don't come back to Afghanistan." What I've heard since is that the guy said, "Do not come back to Afghanistan. You will not get out alive." Black spots appear in the cloudy sky, and you see that they're planes or helicopters. One gets closer and closer. It's a Black Hawk. Then you see Bergdahl again. He's out of the truck now, looking up at the sky. His clothes are too big, billowy. Then, at about 6 minutes in, right after some cows wander onto the scene, the helicopter lands, dust flies. Bergdahl walks forward, flanked by 2 men, while 3 men from the helicopter, the U.S. Special Operations Team, jog toward him. The 2 sides meet in the middle of the clearing, shake hands, like team captains right before the starting whistle. Bergdahl steps forward. The Americans put their hands on him, pull him towards the Black Hawk while they're walking backwards. They don't want to turn their backs on the Taliban just yet. Bergdahl is walking stiffly, lumbering almost. At the helicopter, they pat him down one more time, and then he's on board, they're up and away. Takes less than 2 minutes. And it's done. The video cuts off. From This American Life and WBEZ Chicago, it's Serial. One story told week by week. I'm Sarah Koenig.
Good evening, everyone. Ordinarily, the release of an American serviceman after 5 years of captivity would be a cause for universal celebration, joy, plain and simple.
Pentagon sources tell NBC that Bergdahl vanished under mysterious circumstances.
There have been rumors he left his base unarmed after turning against the war.
Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, hero or deserter? That these soldiers are engaged in a political smear campaign by raising questions.
Parents of some fallen soldiers say their sons would be alive if Bergdahl had not gone missing from his post.
In the old days, deserters were shot.
The very last thing is just, I'm a prisoner. I want to go home. Bring me home, please. Bring me home.
Bo Bergdahl was rescued on May 31st, 2014. If you followed this story in the news, maybe you expected the usual things would follow. A big welcome home, and then his story would come out. We'd learn what happened to him, how he ended up with the Taliban. And it did start out that way. President Obama announced Bergdahl's return in the Rose Garden of the White House, with Bergdahl's parents, Bob and Janie, by his side.
This morning, I called Bob and Janie Bergdahl and told them that after nearly 5 years in captivity, their son, Bo, is coming home.
Bergdahl's hometown of Haley, Idaho, which for 5 years had Bring Bo Home posters and yellow ribbons all over the place, they planned this big celebration for him. But then so suddenly, the whole story flipped. Within days, within hours of his rescue, in fact, people began saying that we shouldn't be celebrating him because Bo Bergdahl deliberately walked off his post into hostile territory. That's how he got captured. Some of his former platoon mates called him a deserter. Others were saying he was a traitor, even, who might have collaborated with the Taliban. Some people took offense that in the Rose Garden event, Bob Bergdahl, who had grown a long beard in his son's absence, had spoken some phrases in Arabic and Pashto. The celebration in Haley was canceled. Congressional leaders condemned the trade the president made to get Bergdahl back, the release of 5 Taliban detainees from Guantanamo Bay, saying the trade was not only ill-conceived, but illegal. The Army launched a big investigation into what exactly happened. Why did Bergdahl leave his post? Even now, other soldiers are so enraged by what Bergdahl did that for his own protection, he's got to have a security detail with him when he leaves his base in San Antonio. Finally, the Army charged Bergdahl with 2 crimes, one of which carries the possibility of a life sentence. And through all of this, Bo Bergdahl himself was like a ghost, a blank. We never heard from him. He wasn't talking on TV. He wasn't quoted in the newspaper. So it seemed like that was that. His story was only going to live in that kind of antiseptic upstairs realm of pissed-off politicians and military experts and cable TV commentators. But last spring, I found out that Bo Bergdahl had been talking to someone for almost a year. He'd been talking to a filmmaker named Mark Bowl.
Naturally, I have a very large sense of humor.
That's Bo.
You know, there's good times and good places for it, and, you know.
Right, you're pretty careful with it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I've noticed even with me, like you don't crack many jokes.
No.
But you can, you know. I mean, I might not laugh, but you can try.
Yeah. If I see opportunity, I might do it.
Yeah, give it a try. If you see an opening, let's see what you got.
Mark Boal is a screenwriter and producer. You've probably heard of his movies, The Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30. Mark wanted to make a movie about Beau's story. So a couple of months after Beau came back to the U.S., Mark managed to contact him, and they started talking about everything. About the Taliban and motorcycles and the existence of God and how good spicy salsa is and how memory works and what a soldier should and shouldn't be. Mark recorded the calls, not for broadcast or anything, which is why you sometimes hear Mark making himself a snack.
Yeah, there was
one bike I saw.
Or the swoosh of Mark sending an email, or his dog scuffling around.
Hold on one sec. Can you, hold on one second.
It's roughly 25 hours of recorded conversations, a lot of it rangy and raw. Their rapport is sort of unexpected. Mark swears a lot, he can be blunt, while Beau, the soldier, comes off as the softer one. His go-to expletive is good grief. These tapes are not like regular interviews because Mark isn't so much after the facts of what happened, though he wants those too, but more he's after the why of what happened, trying to get inside Beau's head to understand how Beau sees the world. And Beau is never monosyllabic or recalcitrant in these conversations. He's trying hard to explain himself. You can hear that Beau is thinking through something, his so far extraordinary life, basically, and what's become of it. Which is understandable, considering that any one piece of this story could keep a person's mind churning. Right now, Beau is waiting to see if the Army is going to drop the charges against him or take them all the way to court-martial, to a trial, or something in between. And then there's the stunning fact that Beau was held by the Taliban for almost 5 years. I just want to pause on that for a second. 5 years, alone. That's longer than any American has ever been held by the Taliban. Longer than any American has survived being held by the Taliban. He can't speak Pashto. The people handling him, for the most part, didn't speak English. So for 5 years, Beau couldn't really talk to anyone. And then here he is in these calls with Mark, and he's describing things vividly that seem indescribable.
At one point, they told me that they kind of had you in a really dark room, almost sounded like a basement, like where there was no light.
There's a few rooms like that.
Yeah.
It's like, how do I explain to a person that just standing in an empty, dark room hurts? It's like, well, someone asks you, well, why does it hurt? Does your body hurt? Yes, your body hurts, but it's more than that. It's like this mental, you're almost confused. There's times when I'd wake up and it's just so dark. I would wake up not even remembering, what I was. You know how you get that feeling when that word is on the tip of your tongue?
Yeah.
That happened to me, only it was what am I? I couldn't see my hands. I couldn't do anything. The only thing I could do was touch my face, and even that wasn't registering right.
Yeah.
To the point where you just want to scream, and you can't. I can't scream. I can't risk that. So it's like you're standing there screaming in your mind in this room. You're standing in this blackened dirt room that's tiny. And just on the other side of that flimsy little wooden door that you could probably easily rip off the hinges is the entire world out there. It is everything that you're missing. It is everybody, everyone is out there. That breath that you're trying to breathe, that release that you're trying to get, everything is beyond that door. And, I hate doors now.
On the other side of the door was relief, of course, but also all the various people and systems that had kicked into action after Beau went missing. Beau's parents and his friends back in Idaho, the military, intelligence analysts, diplomats, and secret meetings with the Taliban, debriefers at Guantanamo Bay, the State Department, the White House. At some point, after I'd been reporting out all these various threads of Beau's story, interviewing lots of people at length about Beau and about what he did and the consequences of what he did, this children's book I used to read to my kids popped into my head. It's called Zoom. There are no words, it's just pictures. And it starts with these pointy red shapes. And then next page, you realize those shapes are a rooster's comb. Next page, you zoom out, you see the rooster is standing on a fence with two little kids watching him. Next page, zoom out again, they're in a farmhouse. And then zoom further, you realize that all of it, the rooster, the kids, the farmhouse, are toys being played with by another child. And that whole scene is actually an ad in a magazine, and the magazine is in the lap of someone napping on a deck chair, and so on. Out and out it zooms, the aperture of the thing getting wider and wider, until the original image is so far away it's unseeable. That's what the story of Bowe Bergdahl is like. This one idiosyncratic guy makes a radical decision at the age of 23 to walk away into Afghanistan. And the consequences of that decision, they spin out wider and wider. And at every turn, you're surprised. The picture changes. To get the full picture, you need to go very, very small into one person's life. And also very, very big into the war in Afghanistan.
Nobody even really knows who he is. And nobody knows why he did it.
It was filmmaker Mark Bowl and his tape that got me interested in all this. We were talking the other day on the phone about what got him interested in Bowe.
He has this, he's a mystery. You know, he poses this really mysterious dilemma because he did something that's, from a military perspective, from a lot of people's perspective, is unforgivable. He commits a cardinal sin in walking off and leaving his post.
Right.
And yet, it's not that simple because he says that he did it for really, not just really good reasons, like the most important, profound reasons you could possibly think of. So how do you judge somebody like that? How do you judge him?
For this story, we've teamed up with Mark and his production company, Page One. They'd come to us saying, hey, we've been doing all this reporting on the story, and we've also got this tape. Do you think you might want to listen? And yes, we did, and we were kind of blown away, and so we began working with them. They shared their research with us and also put us in touch with many of their sources, especially soldiers. We don't have anything to do with their movie, but Mark and Page One are our partners for season 2. You might hear Mark and me talking from time to time during the course of the season, so we can compare notes. Bowe Bergdahl is currently an active duty soldier. He's got a clerical job at his base in San Antonio, Texas, where he's waiting out his legal situation. Again, Bowe isn't talking to the press, but he did give us permission to use the taped phone calls with Mark. So, let's start at the beginning. Why'd he do it? Why'd Bowe leave his platoon? That's where Mark started, too.
Like, I can tell you the story.
Well, give me the 30-second version first.
This is from Mark's first taped phone call with Bowe.
30-second version? You know what Dust 1 is, right?
What is?
Dust 1. The radio signal.
Dust 1 stands for Duty Status Whereabouts Unknown. It's the Army's version of Man Overboard.
Dust 1 is the radio signal that's put out over the radio when a soldier goes missing in a combat field.
Okay.
Or a soldier is taken captive.
Right.
Bowe says what he was trying to do was to cause a Dust 1, which already sets him apart. Because it means Bowe doesn't fit into any of the AWOL or desertion scenarios we're used to hearing. He wasn't cavorting. He wasn't drunk or goofing off. He didn't drop his weapon and flee in the middle of a firefight. He didn't decide in a burst of panic or confusion to go walkabout. Instead, slow simmering and methodical, Bowe formulated a plan. He would create a crisis, a Dust 1, in order to call attention to another crisis. Bowe says he had serious concerns that began back in basic training and which persisted throughout his deployment in Afghanistan, regarding bad leadership within his unit.
And what I was seeing from my first unit all the way up into Afghanistan, all I was seeing was basically leadership failure, to the point that the lives of the guys standing next to me were literally, from what I could see, in danger of something seriously going wrong and somebody being killed.
This is a big point of conflict, maybe the big point of conflict in Bowe's story. The question generally of Bowe's true motives for leaving his post, and specifically whether his description of what was happening around him is accurate or believable. Because, of course, this explanation could be a story he invented. You could argue that he did have 5 years to come up with it. Or he could be expressing the genuine beliefs of a whistleblower. Or the truth could be something else entirely. And I'm definitely going to get into that, precisely what Bo says he was seeing during his deployment and how he reacted to it. But all that will make more sense once you know more about Bo himself. So for now, I'm going to jump over that and just give you the bare bones of what Bo says happened. And that is, he was so alarmed by what he considered crappy and potentially dangerous leadership that he needed to act. He needed to let his command know at the highest levels.
Now, as a private first class, nobody is going to listen to me.
Of course.
So nobody is going to take me serious if I say an investigation needs to be put underway, that this person needs to be psychologically evaluated.
Right.
Bo's solution is the dust one. At the time, Bo was at a tiny outpost known as OP Mest. Mest was the name of the town right across the road from the OP. A few thousand people lived there. Mest was in Paktika province in eastern Afghanistan, right near the Pakistan border. Next to the town, the soldiers set up a sort of campsite, a scrubby, rocky clearing about the size of a football field. A couple of supply roads come together right there. One of the roads leads back to the battalion's big forward operating base at Sharana, FOB Sharana, where there's relative comfort. Beds, internet, Burger King, basketball courts. The other road leads to the Pakistan border. The earth there is this fine, fine dirt. The soldiers I talked to called it moon dust.
The one time I saw Mest, and this would have been a couple days before Bird Dog disappeared, I looked at and I got chills that, wow, that place sucks.
That's a guy named Ben Evans. He never even went to OP Mest, but driving by it was enough to take in the bleakness.
It was 4 trucks surrounded by sea wire, crammed up in a little runoff ditch. So it gave me the willies just seeing the place.
OP Mest is probably the worst place humanly imaginable.
That's John Thurman. John was in the same company as Bo, known as Blackfoot Company, different platoon. Like other soldiers I talked to, John remembered Mest mostly for what it lacked: trees, plumbing, electricity, water, shade.
But OP Mest was built on the side of a hill, and on top of the hill there was a cemetery. And so granted, this place is spooky from the get-go. And the quality of life was extremely low. Everybody pretty much got some sort of GI illness while we were out there just because we couldn't keep things clean enough. We didn't have the resources.
But what was the dirty, just dust and...
Dust, flies,
flies, yeah.
Flies, definitely, the open toilets, the burn pit.
A burn pit, which we called the pit of hell.
This is Shane Cross, who was a friend of Bo's at the time, same platoon. The pit of hell was this large hole they dug, and they'd throw the trash in there and burn it.
We called it the pit of hell because we started it and never went out, and it just burned continuously all through the night and days.
Different from, did you have to burn your shit, for lack of a better word?
Yes, burn good old...
That seems like that would be the pit of hell more than this, like the regular garbage pit.
You did that right next to the pit of hell, so it was all connected. They took an empty HESCO, which HESCO is like a large basket you fill with dirt, like 8 feet tall kind of thing. Took empty one of those and had made a little room, and you had the little bucket that everyone went shit in. Then pull out, mix that with some fuel, and it was someone's job to stand there with a stick and stir it as it burned.
No.
And as you're stirring it, sometimes if you didn't have metal rod, you had a large wooden stick, like a 1x1, it would your stick eventually burns down too, and so you're getting closer and closer as you're stirring it.
Whose job would it be to do the stirring? Like, did you have to draw straws for the stirring? Or did you just take turns?
Between the privates, the NCOs would always pick one of us, and usually you could rely on them picking the private they don't like.
Bo's company, Blackfoot Company, had set up the OP in the first place. It was supposed to help the Afghans keep the insurgents in check, because the 2 roads there, the U.S. called one of them Route Audi and the other Route Dodge, were used as supply routes for Taliban fighters and their weapons and IEDs, improvised explosive devices. They were the big threat in Afghanistan. Bo's platoon leader said there was an IED hotspot about 1,000 meters out along Route Audi. The Afghan National Police had their own little outpost further up the hill there as well. The American soldiers had strung all this concertina wire around the place. And their job was really just to be there, in the middle of nowhere, making their presence felt, keeping a lookout for suspicious vehicles, watching the rooftops of Mest for snipers. Some of the guys I talked to said that occasionally someone would shoot at them and they'd shoot back, but none of them said there was much action there. They didn't discover anyone transporting weapons or bombs. Mostly it was just fruit vendors or farmers or families passing through. Beau's platoon would go to the OP for 3 or 4 or 5 days at a stretch, sometimes doing patrols into Mest or the other nearby town, Malak, or pulling around-the-clock guard duty, either from the trucks or from the hilltop up near the cemetery, where they dug out a small foxhole bunker. There were long, long stretches of boring, of wondering what the hell they were doing there. All the soldiers I talked to said they just hated being at Mest. The OP was about 20 miles southwest of Fob Sharana. So Beau's idea was that he'd sneak away from Mest, which Beau refers to as the TCP, for Traffic Control Point, and run all the way back to the Fob. He says he figured he could make it to Sharana in maybe 24 hours or so. Here's Beau again.
A man disappears from a TCP, and a few days later, after Dust 1 is called up, he reappears at a Fob. Suddenly, because of the Dust 1, everybody is alerted. CIA is alerted. The Navy is alerted. The Marines are alerted. Air Force is alerted. Not just Army.
Which means that when he reappears, it'll be such a big deal. There'll be such a commotion. Everyone will want to know why he left and why he's back. And so he'll be able to get an audience with whomever he wants, a general even. And they won't be able to ignore his complaints.
Weren't you afraid they were going to, throw you in the jail or whatever?
That's actually what that's what I figured they'd do.
And then how long did you figure you'd stay in there?
Well, I figured I'd stay in there until people got the situation cleared up. I was fully confident that when somebody actually took a look at the situation and when people started investigating the situation, that people would understand that I was right. What was going on was a danger to the lives of the men in that company. The idea was I'd rather be sitting in Leavenworth than standing over the body of, Nascimento or Coe or somebody like that. And understanding that if somebody had done something, they'd still be alive.
Nascimento and Coe were guys in Beau's platoon.
So gutsy move, dude.
Gutsy, but it's still stupid.
Well, yeah. That's not mutually exclusive.
Beau makes preparations. Back at the fob for a spell, he goes to the Sharana post office and sends some of his things back to Idaho. Some books, his new laptop, his Kindle, a journal. In the likely event that he gets in trouble, he doesn't want his personal stuff seized by the Army. There's a shop run by the locals at the fob. They call it the Haji shop. They sell DVDs and clothes. Bo buys a local outfit, a sort of robe.
Because I knew there was a possibility of me being out in the open in the daytime. So obviously a big white guy in a uniform walking through the desert by himself is going to, attract a lot of attention.
Yeah.
However, a person with a traditional, with a local dress on and a local headscarf wrapped around his head, that's not going to draw as much attention.
He also took out $300 from his bank account in U.S. and Afghani money, just in case he'd need to bribe someone. At the end of June 2009, Bo's platoon was on its very last rotation at OP Mest. The company was getting ready to hand the place over to the Afghans, which really just means they were going to take their trucks and leave. In any case, this would be Bo's last chance to execute his plan. And this plan, it's risky, obviously. It's difficult and it's dangerous. But technically, it's not impossible to do it. Physically, Bo was capable. He was a good runner. He'd run similar distances before, plus he was used to running in high altitudes in Idaho. He did well in the heat. When he talks about it now, he'll sometimes acknowledge the wrong-headedness of it, that he overestimated his ability, that he wasn't aware of the other ways he could have registered concerns about leadership. But there was this other idea Bo was testing out. Yes, he says he wanted to bring attention to the plight of his platoon, but he also admits that his plan was part crucible.
I was trying to prove to myself, I was trying to prove to the world, to anybody who used to know me, that I was capable of, being that person.
Like a super soldier, you mean?
Yeah, I was capable of being what I appeared to be. Doing what I did was me saying I am, I don't know, Jason Bourne.
Right. A character in a book or whatever, a character.
Yeah, so I had this fantastic idea that I was going to prove to the world that, I was the real thing. I could be, what it is that all those guys out there who go to the movies and watch those movies, they all want to be that, but I wanted to prove that I was that.
Why not just wait and see if you got the opportunity to prove that, on a mission, because you hadn't even been there that long. Why not wait?
I haven't been there very long.
Why not wait a couple months and see if you get a chance to prove yourself in a, some kind of tactical engagement?
Because it was a combination of situations. The situation that I was in was an extremely bad situation. I saw things falling apart as far as my command was.
Right.
Was concerned. So it wasn't that I just decided, hey, I'm going to do this to prove that I could do it. I was trying to find a solution to the problem at hand.
Right.
And I tied into it this idea.
Right.
Kind of like two birds with one stone.
I was just going to say 2 birds with 1 stone.
On the morning of June 30th, 2009, Bo had been scheduled to take over guard duty. The soldiers would keep watch from the turret of one of the MRAPs, which is a big armored truck. Bo was supposed to take over from Austin Lanford, but Lanford comes to the end of his shift, no Bo. So he gets down from the big truck, which he's not technically supposed to do until he's relieved, but whatever. He steps down and shakes Bo's little tent, which is right near the MRAP, to wake him up for duty. Then Lanford goes back up in the truck, still no Bo.
So I went back down and then opened his tent and he wasn't in there. So I was like, okay, well, he probably went to the bathroom or something.
Lanford shouts to a guy headed to the toilet, says, see if Bergdahl's in there. Guy comes back, nope. Then Lanford remembers that Bo had a reputation for sometimes hanging out with the Afghan National Police guys, who also had an outpost up on the hill.
So that was my next thought, was he might be up there. So I radioed up to the OP, said, hey, is Bergdahl there? They said, no, Bergdahl's not up here.
Someone alerts Shane Cross, since he's buddies with Bo, and now Shane starts looking.
So I got up and I said, yeah, I'll get him. And I looked around and poked around for him a little bit. And so I went over to the other trucks where a few people were awake and tried to ask them, hey, where's Bo? And they all said, I don't know. And after I checked a few more trucks, I started to get concerned. And that's when I went back and I woke RPL. And I told him what had happened. That I knew he was gone.
Who was the PL?
Lieutenant Billings.
John Billings was the PL, the platoon leader. He testified at a military hearing that he thought Shane and Austin and the other guys were just messing with him. He said he thought, quote, they just want to see me get all spazzed out, freak out, call higher headquarters, unquote. Instead, Billings realizes with horror that it's real, freaks out, and calls higher headquarters. He told an Army prosecutor that he felt a, quote, internal franticness, unquote. He can't find his guy. He types out a message to his company commander back at Sharana to the effect of, we're not up, meaning not 100% accounted for. I have a missing soldier. At the other end of that message is Captain Silvino S. Silvino, who tells him, look again, there's got to be a mistake. Billings writes back, not a mistake. Silvino sets the dust one in motion, just as Bo had planned. The news starts circulating at the OP, obviously, then back at the FOB, up the chain of command, and then all over Afghanistan. Bo's fellow soldiers immediately tried to piece together what had happened. Here's Austin Lanford, the guy who Bo was supposed to relieve from guard duty.
I knew in my mind that nobody came in and took him. Because they would have either been seen, they wouldn't have been able to get through the Constantina wire. He would have fought back. I didn't imagine him being taken as an option.
And he left behind all his sensitive items in a nice, neat little pile. Sensitive items meaning...
That's Mark McCrory.
Serial numbered gear that would be a problem, like his weapon, the laser for his weapon, the optic, his night optics, stuff like that. That would be a big problem if it went missing. He left it in a nice, neat little pile with a note.
Of course, mixed in with the facts, there was just a ton of conjecture. For instance, there's actually no evidence Bo left a note, and Bo himself says he didn't leave one, so it's not clear to me where that detail came from. Other people said Bo had been acting too cozy with the Afghan National Police guys.
The way that he'd been talking to the locals and the way that he'd been showing up late to guard shifts because he was busy talking to the locals.
That's Josh Corder. Here's Daryl Hansen. His guesses were expansive.
We're like, man, is he like CIA or what? I mean, is he like this crazy like mole?
Right, so what was the discussion? Yeah, what were you guys thinking?
That's what, we did, yeah, that's what we were just thinking, those are the things. It was either this guy's a complete lunatic or is he like CIA? We were trying to, we couldn't figure it out,
Some of these guys, they'd seen so many strange and terrible things on deployments, but this was unheard of. I talked to Josh and Ben and another Ben and a guy I'm calling Scott, it's not his real name, and Ken and John and Jason and Mark and Zach and Austin and Shane and Daryl. They remember Bo differently. They remember what happened after he left differently. They have different feelings about it. They do not speak with one voice. But to a man, they said they were gobsmacked when they heard someone was missing.
And I was like, this has got to be a drill.
Holy crap, is this dream? I was like, what? What? It's just the craziest thing that could ever happen.
Because it was so ludicrous at the time to think about it. What do you mean?
Because nobody walks off. Nobody walks off of Bob or a not even a Bob, a combat outpost.
Where are you going to go? I mean, it's not like you can go hide out, at the mall or something. I mean, there is nowhere but Taliban.
One of Bo's friends told me that he was always a meticulous packer. This trip from Mess to Sharana was no exception. Bo's got his wallet and his camera. He always had his camera on him. 2 small knives that clip onto his belt, plus his utility knife. He's got a notebook. Inside are a few poems and journal entries, plus a newspaper clipping about a guy who'd set a record for sailing, 1,000 days or something. Bo loves boats. For water, he'd filled the bladder from his Camelback, about 3 liters. He'd grabbed a pack of nuts from his trail mix and some vacuum-packed chicken meat from an MRE. That stands for Meal Ready to Eat, the soldier's field ration. And he had his compass. His Afghan clothing he'd shoved into his pocket. He figured he wouldn't need it until the sun rose. Sometime after midnight on June 30th, Bo walks about halfway up the hill toward that second lookout and climbs over the concertina wire in a spot where someone had thrown a plastic crate down on top of it. He skirts past the Afghan and U.S. posts on top of the hill, knowing it's a blind spot for them. It's late, for one thing, so people are probably tired. And if they're looking out at all, they're looking into the distance, not directly below them. Plus, the Afghans don't have night vision gear anyway. Once he clears that hill, he heads northwest toward the town of Malak, passes a school there, until finally he's out in open desert. And that's when it hits him, when he suddenly feels the magnitude of what he's done.
So basically what I decided to do, the first plan was go from point A to point B.
Yeah.
And that was it. However, 20 minutes out, I suddenly, 20 minutes out, I'm going, good grief, I'm in over my head. This is, they're going to, when I get back to the fob, they're going to hit me with everything they can. I knew that was going to happen, but suddenly, it really starts to sink in that I really did something bad. Well, not bad, but I really did something serious.
Also, he's profoundly scared. He's a world away from anything he knows, in a country whose culture is alien to him, where people want to kill him. And he's outside the wire in the dark. When I picture him standing there, I imagine the OP. But he's not at all sure he could sneak back in. After all, the guys there are watching for people coming toward them, and they're manning big machine guns. He might get shot. Instead, Bo figures he's just got to clench his jaw and go for it. And here again, he makes a decision that is not the one you expect, or at least not the one I would expect. Because not only does he keep going, but he alters his plan, complicates it, makes it a little grander and more ambitious. In hopes of mitigating the momentous trouble he now realizes he's in, Bo figures he'll try to arrive back at the fob with some extra thing, a gift, in the form of valuable intel. He knew that on the road from Fob Shrana to OP Mest, there were sometimes IEDs. Bo had heard someplace that the guys who were planting the IEDs were doing it at night. So he decides he'll make like a special forces guy and try to catch someone planting an IED or about to plant an IED. He'll look for flashlights bobbing up and down, listen for the crackle of radios.
The idea would have been if I had seen somebody in the darkness who looked like they were doing something suspicious, I would then slowly, quietly follow them in the night, and then in the morning pick up their trail and track them to wherever it is that they're going. Then I'd get that information, and so that when I got back to the fob, they could say, you left your position, and I could say, well, I also got this information, so, what are you going to do? I have this information of this person who is doing this on this night, and they live here. And so that would be, justifiable, he left his post, he left the TCP, but he collected intel that helped us stop, somebody who was putting an IED in the road. That would have been the bonus point that would have helped me deal with the whole, basically, hurricane of horror, or not hurricane of horror, but hurricane of wrath that was going to hit me once I got back to the fob.
Up until this point, Bo says he'd been walking in open terrain, between the road and a swell of hills. His idea was to make a slight detour, to shift a bit more toward the hills, where some houses were, thinking he'd have a better chance there of catching someone moving around in the dark, unawares. But before he knows it, he's in the hills. He says he got completely tangled in there, forgot to check his compass for 2 hours, which is a rookie move. And so what was meant to be a slight detour turned into a major detour. By the time he'd straightened himself out and gotten out of the hills, he'd lost valuable time.
It's just the next morning was, where I got myself screwed.
By the time the sun was up, Bo was in open desert with no cover.
And, that's what put me into line of sight of the Taliban.
And what happened? Some dudes drove up and just snagged you, or what?
Yeah, I was just walking along. There's a road, probably, I don't know, it's far off, 100 meters, maybe, in a line of motorcycles, probably about 5 motorcycles. There might have been a couple guys on the back of a couple of the motorcycles. There's probably at least 6 or 7 guys.
Yeah.
With the AK-47, one guy had it was a bigger one. It didn't shoot the 7.62 by 30. It shot the 7.62 by 41.
Uh-huh.
He had one of those, and they were driving along the road, and I can't tell you what set them off. I can't tell you how they spotted me. I don't know. They deviated. They turned off the road, came towards me, and maybe they just saw somebody walking through the desert and they wanted to see who he was, or they were seeing if they needed help, or I don't know what it was. But there I was in the open desert, and I'm not about to outrun a bunch of motorcycles.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do anything against 6 or 7 guys with AK-47s, and they pulled up, and that was it.
But they said you fought like crazy.
No, I didn't. I'm not stupid enough to try and fight off. All I had was a knife. I'm not stupid enough to try and knife off a bunch of guys with AK-47s.
So did they basically just tie your hands and toss you in the back of one of the bikes or something, or what?
Pretty much.
Hello?
Hello, this is Sarah. That's me calling the Taliban.
Who?
Hello, is that Mujahid Rahman?
Bale, salam alaikum, wa ichi Mujahid Rahmani. Wa alaikum salam, khairat Julie. Yes, thank you very much. How are you doing?
The Taliban's version of Bo's capture? Next time on Serial. Serial is produced by Julie Snyder, Dana Chivvis, and me in partnership with Mark Bowl, Megan Ellison, Hugo Lindgren, Jessica Weisberg, Page One, and Annapurna Pictures. Ira Glass is our editorial advisor. Whitney Dangerfield is our digital editor. Research by Kevin Garnett. Fact-checking by Michelle Harris. Copy editing by Anahita Lani. Editing help this week from Joel Lovell, Hannah Jaffe-Walt, and Nancy Updike. Our music is composed by Nick Thorburn with additional music from Mark Phillips and Fritz Myers, and the show is mixed by Kate Belinsky. Kristen Taylor's our community editor. Other Serial staff, Seth Lind, Emily Condon, Elise Bergerson, and Kimberly Henderson. Special thanks to Steve Sigmund, Chad Hunt, Carl Burton, Rich Orris, Matt Dorfman, and Sarah Barrett. Our website is serialpodcast.org, where you can listen to all our episodes, sign up for our newsletter, read articles by the Serial
To live, just sit and putter. Life's candy and the sun's a ball of butter. Don't bring around a cloud to rain on my parade. Don't tell me not to fly, I simply got to. If someone takes a spill, it's me and not you. Who told you you're allowed to rain on my parade? I'll march my band out, I'll beat my drum, and if I'm found out, turn at bat, sir. At least I didn't fake it, hat, sir. I guess I didn't make it, but whether I'm the rose of sheer perfection or freckle on the nose of life's complexion, the cinder or the shiny apple of its I'm a comer. I simply gotta march, my heart's a drummer. Don't bring around a cloud of rain on my parade. I'm gonna live and live now. Get what I want, I know how. One roll for the whole shebang. One throw, that bell will go clang. Eye on the target and wham. One shot, one gunshot and bam! Hey, Mr. On-Steel, here I am. I'll march my band out. I'll beat my drum. And if I'm found out, your turn at bats. At least I didn't fake it, hats. Guess I didn't make it. Get ready for me, love, 'cause I'm a comer. I simply gotta march my heart to drum. And nobody, no, nobody is gonna rain on my
Are we the last living souls? 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 Chica gone, how you say? That's no way to behave. And just along, then you begin to sing a song that doesn't sing, it grows. You know Are you here with me? Just looking out on the day of another dream, where you can't get what you want, but you can get me. So let's set out to sea, 'cause you are my medicine when you're close to me. When you're close to me.
there in the Boston.
Press the button to begin.
All my life, me ever have my gun, so me have to move sharp like me knife. All my life, me pray say when me get wealthy, I'm and me wife. All my life, this system force me to be a killer just like Rodney Price. All my life, no, all my life. One take Kobe, some boy don't know me. Though me rough, them can't believe a grandma draw me. Know a few popcorn songs, oh, and feel them know me. 4 mile me used to walk to school, them know man's story. Ha! Now me gain up all those glory. The world is mine, the whole life me taking slowly. Happy days me call it, now me bun sad story. Anyway, me the in at the world, me dogs them round me. Me laugh and collect those trophies. Because me deserve everything what music give me. Boy, unruly no like frisbee. The dream, family live that with me. Oh, 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 oh. All my life, me dream for who knows. Land, cars and bikes. All my life,
I'm in a staking bar, I got debts, I'm a debaser.
All my life,
sad and about to my love, and I'm just a heartbreaker. I won't get a taking, cause I'm out when I'm staking. And I read, I'm breaking, I'm making you a personal day.
all my life,
sad and about to my love, and I'm just a heartbreaker. I won't get a taking, cause I'm out when I'm staking. And the rings I'm breaking, I'm making you a personal day.
Clocks on the wall, talk to watches on the wrist. It's the moments we relive. It's the moments like this when it's time to get ill. We be so ahead of time. It's the moments we achieve. Best believe it's the moments.
Made up and yellow, red, black, white, dirty moments. Made up and yellow, red, black, white, dirty moments.
Shiver down my backbone. Daylight is also back again with a crew that's bound to pack them in. Got a girl who's up for the mating.
I sense the need in her grandma.
Her nose has never been skating, but she's sipping stir constellation. Reveal her squirt game is sort of like Tupac out of court, run towards camera. My response to that was just check, please. That my man, you can't let these pass you by like TikTok. I'm smacking the bottom like flip flops. Made her a long range. She screamed. And now we done, we passed the test. So now lay down to rest and wait for the morning hangover to come. Clocks on the wall, talk the watches on the wrist. It's the moments we relive. It's the moments like this when it's time to get ill. We be so ahead of time. It's the moments we achieve. Best believe it's the moments.
Made up and yellow, red, black, white, dirty moments. Made up and yellow, red, black, white, dirty moments.
Shiver down my
down to rest and wait for the morning hangover to come. Clocks on the wall, the watches on the wrist. It's the moments we relive. It's the moments like this when it's time to get ill. We be so ahead of time. It's the moments we achieve. Best believe it's the moments. 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 Moments.
I'm talking about the Cool Clown Clan. Cool Clown Clan. I'm talking about the Cool Clown Clan. Hardly to step out for a fresher breath of air after that.
And now, let's repeat the non-conformist oath. I promise to be different. I promise to be unique. I promise not to repeat things other people say.
Don't try to hide away. You know you've been known, though I'm keeping calm. I'm not one. Go away, my love. Thought I could change our fate. I tried again, but this delay is more than I can take, and it got to me. When you say you love and you walk away, what could you be on? Now you're not around, but I hope you see I will be full on. If it's up to me, that's all I got. Feels so good doing me. If you take a look at the time you took and move on, but don't go too far, my love. We could try harder, baby. There's gotta be a better way. So much that we could make. And you got to me when you stake your love, but you run away. What could you be on? Now you're not around, but I hope you see. Gotta be full on. If it's up to me, that's all I Stealing kisses from your missus doesn't make you freak out. Got you fussing, got you worried, scared to let your guard down. Boys, boys, tell the neighbors I'm not sorry if I'm breaking walls down, building your girl's second story, ripping all your floors out. Saw your face, heard your name, gotta get with you. Girls like boys do, nothing new. Isn't this why we came? Gotta get with you. Girls like
Apocalypse of the Damned!
Level 9!
The Cafetorium!
Find the bad guy, push him aside, then move on forward with your friend at your side. It's a two-player game, so when they make an attack, you know you got a brother gonna have your back. And you stay on track, and I remain on course. And if they give you a smack, you gotta use your force. And if you leave your brother behind, it's lame, cause it's an effed up world, but it's a two-player game. Hey!
Dude, you are cooler than a vintage cassette. It's just that no one else but me thinks that yet. You're just a nothing in this high school scheme, but it's no big cause you and I are a team. We like out-of-print games, retro skates, got a Pac-Man tattoo. Nobody here appreciates, but soon we'll be together where they do. Cause guys like us are cool in college, yes I know. Like us are cool in college, we rule in college, listen bro. High school is hell, but we navigate it well, cause what we do is we make it a two-player game. Zombie! Watch out!
As losers, we have fought together for years. Both Nintendo zombies and our popular peers. Now we're stuck on a level and I wanna move on.
Just wait 2 years, we're a pawn. You'll realize guys like us are cool in college. Cool in college won't be lame.
Dude, I know, I get it. Guys like us are cool in college, but we're not in college.
All the same, high school is whack, but we have each other's back. It's me and you, we make it a two-player game. Ah! Oh! Zombie!
Hello?
Blood!
Son!
Claws!
Jeremy!
Pause. You know that you are my favorite person. That doesn't mean that I can't still dream.
Is it really true? I'm your favorite person.
Yeah, we're never not gonna be a team. High school is shit, and you gotta help me conquer it. It's just what we do.
We make it a two-player game.
Find the bad guy, push him aside. Then move on forward with your friend at your side. It's a two-player game, so when they make an attack, you know you got a brother gonna have your back. Then you stay on track and I remain on course. And if they give you a smack, you gotta use your force. And if you leave your brother behind, it's lame, cause it's an effed up world, but it's a two-player game. Hey! Two-player game. Two-player game. Hey!
Are you a real villain?
Well, technically,
Have you ever caught a good guy, like a real superhero?
Nah.
No then. Have you ever tried a disguise?
Nah.
All right. I can see that I will have to teach you how to be villains.
We are number one. Hey! We are number one. Hey!
Now listen closely. Here's a little lesson in trickery. This is going down in history. If you wanna be a villain number one, chase a superhero on the run. Go, go, go! Just follow my moves and sneak around. Be careful not to make a sound. No, don't touch that. Ah! We are number one. Hey! We are number one. We are number one. Now look at this net that I just found. When I say go, be ready to throw. A go! Throw it at him, not me. Oh, let's try something else. Now watch and learn. Here's the deal. He'll slip and slide on this banana peel. What are you doing? We are number one. Hey! We are number one. Hey, hey.
I am hanging in the bathroom at the biggest party of the fall. I could stay right here or disappear clearer, and there's no denying I'm just at a party. Is there a sadder sight than Michael in the bathroom at a party? This is a heinous night. I wish I stayed at home in bed watching cable porn, or wish I offed myself instead. Wish I was never born. Cause Michael, who's a loner, so he must be a stoner, rides a PT Cruiser. God, he's such a loser. Michael flying solo. That you know, Michael in the bathroom by himself. All by himself. All by himself. All you know about me is my name. Awesome party, I'm so glad I came.
when stars come in black or red, I've seen their worlds inside my head. They connect with the fall of man. They breathe you in, then dive as deep as they can. There's nothing you can do for them. They are the force between when the sunlight is arising. There's nothing you can say to him. He is in outer heart, and the space has been broken. Broken. All over. Broken. Broken. All over. Broken. Is it far away in the glitter free, or in our eyes every time they meet? It's by the light of the plasma screens we keep switched on all through the night while we sleep. There's nothing you can do for them. They are the force between when the sunlight is arising. There's nothing you can say to her. I am without a heart, and the space has been broken. Broken. All over. Broken.
Yes, the candy, yo, it's sausage.
Sausage candle.
Most people don't do it the way I do. Very personal. So like you give them the money in 20s, you know, like whatever. I just like sausage.
Yes, I also miss our talks. Stop doing drugs, just try to take deep breaths and go on walks. No, I'm sending pictures of the most amazing trees. No, you'll be obsessed with all my forest expertise. Absolutely not. Dude, I'm proud of you. Just keep pushing through. You're turning around, I can see. Just wait and see. 'Cause all that it takes is a little reinvention. It's easy to change if you give it your attention. All you gotta do is just believe you can be who you wanna be. Sincerely me. My
sister's hot.
What the hell?
My bad. Dear Evan Hansen, thanks for every note you send.
Dear Connor Murphy, I'm just glad to be your friend. Our friendship goes beyond your average kind of bond. But not because we're gay.
No, not because we're gay.
We're close, but not that way. The only man that I love is my dad.
Well, anyway,
you're getting better every day.
I'm getting better every day.
Keep getting better every day. Hey, 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 hey! 'Cause all that it takes is a little reinvention. It's easy to change if you give it your attention. All you gotta do is just believe you can be who you wanna be. Say